I haven't slept in 31 hours, which makes everything both truer and less useful. Time becomes a rubber band when you stretch it this far. Colors get louder. Sounds feel like shapes pressing against your skin. I keep telling myself that exhaustion is only a trick of perception, but even that thought feels like someone else's breath on the back of my neck. The hum starts in the vent over the stove, low as a held breath. And maybe it's the fan motor giving up, or the landlord's mythic refrigeration unit downstairs remembering its first life. In this building, everything is older than it should be. The walls hold decades of smoke and unkept promises. Pipes murmur to themselves. Every step in the hallway carries the weight of someone who lived here before. But when I press my palm to the chipped enamel, the metal is cold and the hum is not. The hum is a temperature in my teeth, vibrating the roots, a tiny electric ache like when you bite on tinfoil. It isn't sound, it's residency. The clock on the microwave is wrong, because I pulled it from the wall last week and never said it again. Its blank green digits look like a wound refusing to close. The phone insists it's 3:17 a.m., but my body doesn't trust clocks anymore. My body knows only the blur. The diner below quiets in a way that says the grill is clean, and the owner is arguing softly with the day that just left. The smell of bacon fat and bleach leaks up through the floorboards, mixing with the cold metallic odor of my own kitchen. The bay is sleeping. My building is not. Nothing in this building ever really sleeps. It only pretends, like a dog twitching in a dream. I step to the window, expecting nothing, but there they are, for light rectangles hovering above Black Salt Bay like someone cut windows out of a brighter room and hung them in the night. Not beams, not orbs. Windows, soft white, right-angled. Their edges aren't razor. They fuzz the way a memory does when you think you're remembering the first time, but it's the third. They're quiet, yet I feel them louder than thunder. My throat tightens as if my name is being called from under the water. I do the wrong thing. I look straight at them. You're not supposed to look straight at anything that's already looking at you. My grandmother used to say that about feral cats and strangers on buses. I never understood it until now. The pressure in my molars becomes heat. It radiates up into my temples, down my jaw, into the tender cartilage of my ears. The hum lifts half a step as if pleased or disappointed. I can't tell which. The windows to just. Not closer, not that kind of story. They become near. The bay between us feels like paper laid on paper. No distance, only a seam. My stomach flips like it does before an elevator stops. The air thins, but not like altitude, like removal. I count, because counting is religion for minds that don't want to pray. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth window blinks at the end of 4 like a tired eye. The blink isn't mechanical. It's weary, almost human. My skin crawls with a certainty that something on the other side of that blink has noticed me. I want to back away, but my body is a pinned insect. The ceiling vent coughs once. A gust of metallic breath. I taste copper. The tang of a coin pressed against a bleeding lip. A gull calls somewhere it shouldn't be awake. Its cry spirals upward, then stops mid-note as if clipped. My hands tremble. I lift the phone, take a picture through the glass, know it will show nothing but night. It shows nothing but night. Black pixels, maybe a smear of reflection. The windows are for me, not for the camera. Some things resist being captured. Some things do not want proof. A light clicks on across the alley in an apartment that has been empty since May. I know it's empty because I helped the old tenant carry boxes down the stairs, because I saw the realtor lock the door and tape the sign. Someone stands at the window. They are a silhouette carved out of glow, more absence than presence. They lift a hand, 2 fingers raised, a measurement or a greeting. My heart stumbles. I raise mine before realizing I don't know them, or if they are there. My reflection could be lying to me. Exhaustion could be lying to me. But the hum isn't lying. The hum never lies. The hum drops away, like a throat clearing, like the moment after a question before an answer. The windows don't. For a heartbeat, the world becomes still enough to hear my own blood. Then other sounds creep in, the fridge muttering in another dialect, the slow pop of pipes, a rhythm beneath it all like a hidden drum. My breath comes in short bursts. My eyes water. Each tear tastes different. Memories crowd at the edges of my mind, irrelevant ones. The smell of my father's workshop, the feel of sand on my skin at 7, a red scarf on a train platform. The windows pull these things from me, like a tide stripping shells from a beach. I whisper to myself, stop, breathe, count. But counting is gone now, slippery as soap. All I have is a glass and the bay and those impossible rectangles, soft as moth wings yet immovable as teeth. The phone vibrates on the counter with a sound too loud for its size. It rolls, a slow, deliberate crawl, and falls. Screen cracks like a spiderweb. A new text from unknown blooms on a fractured display. Don't look straight at it. My heart clenches. The typing dots begin again and spell my middle name, which I never told anyone here, letter by letter, like a child chanting in the dark. I don't pick it up. I don't dare. The light across the alley goes out, leaving only the echo of a figure I can't prove existed. The hum returns in a lower register, slow as a heartbeat, resonating in my teeth again. And the windows, those soft, impossible windows, hold their place above Black Salt Bay, as if waiting for me to make a decision I don't yet know exists. I only answer numbers that know me or numbers too bold to block. This is neither. The text arrives in fragments, like someone conquering language one breath at a time. Words staggering like refugees, each one carrying its own tremor. Don't look straight at it. Look near. Breathe in 4s. Claire, I haven't used my middle name in 10 years. Not in applications, not on forms, not in any whisper I could remember. It became an old coat hanging in the back of the closet, smelling of rain and childhood. I could have told myself it was a good guess about trawling old data, but then the next line arrives, soft as a fingertip on glass. You still hide money in the blue thermos under the sink. It's there if you need it. My stomach folds. The message smells like the inside of my skull. I go to the sink because I am a predictable animal and bad at pretending to be brave. The floor under my bare feet is cold, dotted with crumbs I don't remember dropping. The blue thermos is where I left it. Dry inside, $80 folded under a rubber band, as if today is the kind of day I expected. The bills smell faintly of the diner downstairs, coffee and steel. I touch the band. It snaps softly like a vein waking. The hum in the vent rises politely, curious, as if leaning over my shoulder. Outside, the windows shift, not moving, recontextualizing. Space rearranges like someone turning a photograph upside down. The one farthest left aligns with the rusted channel marker that leans into the bay like a drinker returning to faith. Another leans against the silhouette of the old cannery crane, long abandoned. I take this in the corner of my eye, and the hum approves. It rolls inside, my jaw like a cat purring in bone. You hear it now, don't you? It hears you back. Don't answer with words. I read the text 3 times. The words fade differently each time, like they're written on fog. My thumbs hover over the keyboard like I'm about to confess, and then I remember to breathe in 4s. In through the nose, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, release. The hum sinks to the breath like it's been waiting for a conductor. It swells, breaks, returns, an unseen tide washing ashore behind my eyes. A train horn miles inland calls a low note the hum likes. The two sounds lock like gears. The air tastes of iron filings and wet leaves. The alley window across glows, then dims. The shape there tilts its head in the international language of. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? I can't tell if it's a woman, a man, or a gap cut out of the night. My mouth moves without words. I raise 2 fingers. They raise 2 fingers. Our gestures hang in the air like unfinished bridges. We fail to wave. The phone calls itself. The screen shows my number calling me. The ring is a sound I haven't used since the last time I lived with someone, and we were still pretending the phone would bring good things. It's the ring from a shared apartment where mail piled up and laughter didn't. I let it ring until the windows flicker once, like an eyelid narrowing. I answer. Silence. Then my own voice breathing. It's a sound I've only heard on old voicemails, years old, stored out of nostalgia, and then forgotten. Then my own voice saying, don't say my name. Only it isn't a command. It's a kindness. A small mercy in a room without angels. It feels like being covered by a blanket you didn't know was there. I hang up by placing the phone on the windowsill, as if I were setting down a baby who might startle. The glass is cool, and the sill is gritty with salt blown in from the bay. The hum levels out to the pitch of fluorescent lights in bad kitchens. It hums of laundromats and waiting rooms, of patients ground to powder. Below, the diner door opens and closes twice with no footsteps between. The air carries the smell of warm grease and cold sea. The owner sometimes leaves out back to smoke and sometimes doesn't return because sleep happened to him in the alley, and he took it as an omen. Once, weeks ago, I saw him drop a cigarette mid-drag and stare at the sky like he'd heard his name called. He didn't move until the wind took it. The windows brighten without brightening. Not illumination, attention. I angle my gaze a few inches right, letting them stand in peripheral patience. They feel me do it. I know because the hair on my arms lifts as if static is being wound. The edges of the room tremble faintly, not like an earthquake, but like an image printed twice, slightly offset. My own reflection bends, eyelids fluttering where they shouldn't. The hum thickens, as though drawn through honey. The phone rolls. It doesn't vibrate. It simply rolls, like gravity shifted for a moment in its favor. A text arrives with such careful spelling it hurts. You're very close. Don't let them choose your hour. The letters sit heavy on the screen, black ants marching over glass. My throat closes around a question I can't ask. My pulse taps against my teeth. Outside, the leftmost window blinks. Not a shudder, not a glitch. A blink. My peripheral vision fills with a color that has no name, like bruised pearl. I taste ozone. I think of a playground swing still moving after the child is gone. I want to reply. My thumbs ache with the wanting. But words feel like traps now. The messages have no punctuation, but the hum supplies it. Commas and pressure, periods and heat. My breath catches on the 4 count and stumbles. The hum catches me, hold me upright like unseen hands. In the reflection of the glass, over my shoulder, I see 5 windows, one smaller, hovering inside the right angle of the others, exactly where my kitchen table sits. My kitchen table, the one with the uneven leg, and the coffee ring shaped like a crescent moon. It hovers there like an invitation folded into a threat. And for the first time, I understand the text. Don't let them choose your hour. Something is counting, and the count is almost done. I learned about afterimages at 12, bored in a gymnasium where a man with a projector came to sell us the idea that our eyes lie all the time. The floor smelled like rubber and dust. The walls sweated heat from a late spring afternoon, and the hum of the old fluorescent bulbs pulsed through our skulls like soft static. He wore a beige suit that belonged to someone else's decade and carried a pointer like a priest carries a candle. Stare at a blue square for 30 seconds, he said. Then look at the wall. The wall will give you orange, which is the wall telling you it misses you. He was kinder than the world I had met so far. I didn't believe him, but when I looked at the blank wall and saw the orange phantom blooming there, I thought maybe everything we see is just the world trying to apologize for what it took away. Now, standing in my kitchen, I stare at the reflection instead of the night. The glass holds more honesty than the darkness behind it. The 5 windows live inside the reflection, nested within the familiar angles of my apartment, like ghosts that rented space. The small one, tucked in the corner like a pupil inside an iris, sits precisely over my table, my poor table even on good days, a thrift store relic with one leg shorter than the others, a wobble that feels like a heartbeat when I lean against it. Seated at it, no one, not yet. I take a step sideways. The small window doesn't follow me. It follows the table. An afterimage that knows furniture, not people. That's when I remember what the man in the gymnasium said after the lights came back on. Afterimages don't belong to your eyes. They belong to what you looked at. You just carry them for a while. Behind my apartment is Black Salt Bay, a curl of water more rumor than geography. Maps pretend it's larger than it is. But anyone who stood at its edge knows it's just a hesitation of ocean, a pause before the real thing begins. The bay wears channel markers like bad jewelry, their lights blinking at inconsistent intervals, as though embarrassed by their duty. At low tide, the mudflats reflect a sky that forgets itself. Clouds lose their edges. Stars become smudges. Everything tries to be something else. When I was new here, still trying to earn a truce with the place, I walked those flats and found a smooth stone polished by tide and time. It was the color of old milk and cool in my palm. I put it in my pocket out of some superstitious desire to own one thing the place couldn't take back. The next day, it was gone. The place keeps its trophies. The hum modulates as if to say, yes, yes, the backstory is adorable. Now place yourself. It's a scolding sound, affectionate in tone but clinical in precision, like a teacher waiting for a late answer. I fetch painter's tape from the cupboard where it shares space with loose tea and an emergency candle, both untouched since last year's blackout. The tape feels tacky with humidity. I tear a strip, the sound loud and quiet, and tape a right angle on the floor where the reflection shows the big windows would live if they were domestic things. Then I tape a smaller square inside it, where the small one sits, mirroring what I see in the glass. The smell of adhesive fills the air. I stand in the corner, breathing in fours. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold, and wait to feel ridiculous. I feel ridiculous. Then I feel the floor change height by the thickness of a coin. It's subtle, but it's there. Like the building exhaled once and forgot to return to its original shape. The phone purrs. Not a ring, more like a cat deciding you deserve attention. The message arrives in one clean line, confident now. Don't stand in it, stand near it. So I do. I move where the two blue tape edges would meet if they loved each other enough to touch. The air feels tighter here, the way a room does before lightning. The vent above me gives a small, respectful cough, as if clearing its throat before speaking. The windows outside tighten their right angle to match mine, the geometry of communication. Across the alley, the figure raises a thermos in salute, blue, like mine. The gesture is calm, ordinary, almost human. The light from their apartment, if it is an apartment, paints their outline like smoke given form. I blink. The afterimage does not. When I open my eyes again, there are only 4 windows in the reflection. The small one is gone. Or I'm looking wrong. Or maybe it's moved somewhere I can't yet define. I lift the phone to take another photo. I expect to fail. I brace for the usual black void. But in the preview, I don't see the bay or the reflection or the tape on the floor. I see a strip of thermal paper, curling slightly, printed with my name and a number, 19. For a second, I think it's a trick of exposure, an optical ghost. But when I lower the phone, it's only my kitchen again. The uneven table, the cheap light, the blue tape framing absence. And yet the hum answers my breath like a choir answers a pitch pipe, adjusting to my rhythm as though practicing for performance. The number sits in my mind. 19. I say it under my breath, and the hum shifts key. Once, when I was a child, I believed numbers had textures. 1 was smooth, 2 was sharp, 3 was wet. 19, though, I'd never met 19 before. It feels like cardboard burning. The bay outside sighs against its banks, a low grinding of water and grit. The air thickens with the smell of salt and rain that hasn't arrived yet. The figure across the alley is gone, replaced by the hollow glow of their empty room. But I can still sense the blue thermos raise a memory, as though the gesture continues somewhere time forgot to erase. I reach toward the tape corner. The light flickers. Something clicks inside the vent, metal shifting, expanding, considering. I take a step back. The phone vibrates once in my hand. Then again, I check it. Nothing on the screen. But the vibration continues, faint and internal, as if the phone is trembling at a frequency my eyes can't measure. When it stops, the kitchen feels larger. Not visibly, but in spirit, like the walls took a breath and didn't give it back. I open the cupboard again, looking for nothing in particular, and find the blue thermos, mine, missing from its usual place beside the emergency candle. For a moment, I think I hear the soft slosh of water inside it, though it's been empty for months. Then a knock, once, inside the wall behind the vent. Not loud, but deliberate, a polite intrusion. The hum pauses, reverent. Something rustles behind the metal, a small sound like paper dragged across sand. A strip of thermal paper curls out from the grate, warm to the touch, Words still wet and glistening. I smooth it flat on the counter. The letters rise in faint gray ink. Don't spend it yet. My knees forget how to lock. The paper smells like ozone and cheap ink, like a receipt for something I didn't buy. The number 19 floats above in my mind, heavy as an instruction. I think of afterimages again, how they linger even when the light source is gone, how they fade if you blink too much, how they return if you close your eyes long enough. I wonder if this house, this night, this version of me is just an afterimage of something else that blinked first. The hum returns, steady and patient, a language with no vowels. And I finally understand what the man in the gymnasium meant. Our eyes don't just lie. They remember in colors we were never meant to name. Outside, the 4 remaining windows tilt slightly, aligning with the taped square on my floor. The reflection breathes once. Somewhere behind the vent, a second knock waits to happen. By daylight, Black Salt Bay is all glare and apology, a flat metal sheet under the sun, throwing light back at you like a slap you're supposed to laugh off. At noon, the air smells of kelp and diesel. The boardwalk sells fried dough and fake nostalgia. By 2:11 a.m., it's a rumor wrapped in fog. Tonight the fog has teeth. It presses against my face as though testing my shape. I carry the blue thermos in my jacket because I am not immune to talismans. It's heavy against my ribs, the weight of a superstition. Inside it, no water, just the idea of water. I carry the strip of paper in my pocket like an iota. The paper is warm, or maybe I am. My fingers find the way a tongue finds a cut. The tide chart says the tide is wrong. It sits at a height this hour does not deserve, flat as a photograph pretending to be water. A perfect horizontal plane that looks printed rather than lived. Someone is standing in it, at least 30 yards out, not moving, not cold. They are a darker vertical against a horizontal world. I know how people stand when they want to be seen. This is not that. This is a demonstration of geometry. The chain link fence separating the boardwalk from the bay buzzes when I touch it. The buzz is not electricity but memory, a vibration in my palm that travels up my arm like an announcement. The hum is here too, stretched thin but unmistakable. The note from the vent now expanded across water. If I breathe in, Forza hums with me. If I hold my breath, it keeps time with my pulse and makes me feel dizzy, which is rude. Somewhere in the fog, a bell tolls once and doesn't echo. The sound folds inward like paper being creased. The figure in the water raises a hand. 2 fingers. A measurement. A greeting. A question. The gesture is slow, precise, like a clock's hand passing midnight. I raise mine and the fence sings in a chord made of rust and memory. The hum likes it. It lifts half a tone as though rewarded. Don't go out, says a voice behind me that belongs to someone who either owns this town or stole it. The voice is gravel wrapped in velvet, close but not breathing. I don't turn. I am learning to look near things. My reflection in the fence shows no one behind me. Okay, I say to the fog. The fog accepts my answer with a shift of texture, strands drawing tighter. The figure remains in place like a lighthouse with no beam and no need to rotate. The chain links are just a second note. Lower, smaller, on the first, as if asking whether I might please stand half a step left. I do. My boots scrape against the damp wood of the boardwalk. The hum approves again, a soft click of my molars. The windows over the bay flicker once, so faintly I could pretend it was a bird. Pretend, but don't. A gull scolds me for being a cliché and settles on the marker pole. Its feathers are damp and gray, its eyes too bright. The person in the water lifts their other hand. They are now measuring something in the air, framing an invisible picture, or building a doorway I can't yet see. My phone vibrates in the pocket nearest the bay. It vibrates low, like a cat's warning growl. Don't answer with words. The text says, answer with placement. Then, you'll know it works when your breath hurts less. The letters are careful and evenly spaced, as though someone typed them wearing gloves. I step back from the fence and angle my body to the bay. So the window's live in the corner of my eye. I breathe in 4s. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Out. Hold. My breath hurts less. The cold air slides easier into my chest, like a key turning. The figure in the water turns, not rotating. Exactly. They recontextualize, as if the scene is being edited in real time and their position re-rendered. They walk toward shore, without the water parting. They leave no ripples, no wake. They are cut out, moving across a print. And yet they leave footprints on the boardwalk behind me, as if they walked past me a minute ago and went upstairs to my building. Each print a small oval depression filled instantly with mist. I do not follow. I do not run. I do not scream. I watch the last two prints fill with a thin skim of fog like milk, sealing themselves. My throat closes on an old prayer I don't remember the words to. At the top of the stairs up from the bay, someone drops something metal that clangs once and decides not to repeat itself. The sound doesn't echo. It sticks to the boards like a sticker. When I get there, the blue thermos from my kitchen is sitting neatly by my door, dry inside, the $80 replaced by a strip of thermal paper that reads, "Still 19, don't spend it yet." I hold the thermos. It's cold in a way that feels interior, like the cold of caves. The paper is soft, the ink still smudgeable. The number 19 glows in my head like a house number I can't place. I slide the thermos under my arm, the paper back into my pocket, and unlock my door with hands that don't feel entirely mine. Hook, the vent wakes me an hour later with the smell of hot dust and a sound like a voice practicing syllables. On the fog window, with no hand to write it, the word near appears and refuses to clear. Tinnitus has been my companion since an unkind job, and a kinderwoman taught me how to endure fluorescent lights without grief. The job taught me how to wait for something that wasn't coming. The woman taught me that waiting could be an act of mercy. After she left, the ringing stayed, a loyalty I hadn't earned. But this is not tinnitus. This is pattern. The vent coughs once, like a patient clearing its throat after too much silence, and the hum arranges itself into 4 soft pulses. A breath, 3, a breath. 4 time human tempo. It's mimicry, mine. When I miss it, corrects me. When I hold my breath, it continues on without me, as if to prove it doesn't need me, and I feel stupidly scolded by a piece of metal that's lived here longer than I have. I glance toward the ceiling. The paint around the vent has yellowed in the shape of an old flower. It looks alive when the light flickers. Somewhere behind that grill, something vibrates with the precision of a heart that has been counting longer than mine. "Okay," I say, and then don't say anything else because someone asked me not to answer with words. The window spells near again. The condensation beads on the glass, as if forming deliberate strokes, like handwriting practice by someone learning a new alphabet. Then rivulets disturb it. A letter slides. The word loses its beginning. Ear. If I were crueler to myself, I'd call a joke my body's private one-liner. I am trying not to be cruel. I tape a new line on the floor with the painter's tape, an extension of the right angle from last night. The tape rips unevenly, teeth marks of adhesive. I smooth it down with my palm, feel the tiny ridges of the floorboards beneath. I stand just outside of it, as instructed by the unknown professor who lives inside my phone. I imagine them, this unseen teacher, geometry and restraint, sitting somewhere with a wall full of diagrams, marking my progress in breath counts. The hum brightens, a word that doesn't belong to sound, and I taste pennies, metallic, dry, inevitable. The windows outside have moved their right angle fraction of a star's width, and my kitchen notices. The refrigerator clicks in solidarity. The light under the stove hood flutters. My own pulse forgets itself for half a beat, as though the air has leaned closer to listen. Across the alley, the empty apartment's window blinks off, and on once per hour. I start to time it, because that's what people like me do when we can't solve the mystery. We measure it. I take a photo on the hour. Each shot shows a different sky. Noon, early winter sunset, a summer morning I've never stood inside. Once, the glass shows nothing but white. Not fog, not glare, just the absence of temperature. I look away because it feels rude to stare at neutrality. I scroll through the photos later. My reflection never appears. Just a window, the impossible skies, and once, faintly, a thermos on a table that could be mine but isn't. My phone rolls against the sill. I don't remember setting it down there. It flashes a message. You're choosing your hour. Good. Then, after a pause long enough to feel like breath, don't spend the 19. Then half a minute later, we will borrow one for you if you need it, but you won't get to pick which. The words appear and vanish like ripples under wind. I reread them 3 times, knowing they won't mean more on the 4th. I think about the strip of thermal paper from before. Still 19. Don't spend it yet. The repetition comforts me. Rules always do, even when I don't understand them, especially then. The vent grows warm as a sleeping animal. The hum is not a tone now. It is a grammar. Sentences form to vibration and pause. Each pulse carries intent. I breathe into it the way a person breathes into a paper bag because someone told them to. The air thickens. My breath hurts less. The hurt wasn't pain. I realize it was resistance. A knock inside the wall again. Once. Then a longer, lower reply like a room clearing its throat. The sound travels horizontally, as if the building is talking to itself through its ribs. The afterimage in the window glass shows, for a second, the small 5th window returning inside the right angle. It sits exactly where the table lives, exactly where a person would sit to pretend a window is a door. Its light is not bright, but definite, an internal sun with nowhere to rise. Okay, I say again, because my vocabulary is narrowed since sleep left. Words have been replaced by locations. The hum acknowledges me with a harmonic twitch. The phone types by itself, or maybe the person who wears my number wear coat is worn decides to be kind. You're very close. The letters form slowly, as though each one requires permission. I stare until they fade, leaving a faint bruise of light on the screen. Outside, Black Salt Bay raises a small wind. It carries salt, iron, and something older, like the smell of wet circuits. The chain link down by the water sings a single low note and holds it. The sound threads itself through the night until it becomes indistinguishable from the hum. The two merge and the air thickens. The diner below turns its sign to close and then, perhaps out of superstition, turns the light off too. The darkness folds neatly around the building. I can hear the refrigerator motors from down there, a collective whisper of persistence. I sit at the table, not in the taped square near it. The hum approves, soft and pleased, like a dog sighing at the foot of the bed. The windows outside approve, their angles aligning again, invisible geometry locking into place. I approve of approval like I always do. I have never been immune to permission. Then the ceiling light blinks out. Not a pop, not a fade, just an absence. The apartment holds still for a beat that is longer than itself. In that stretched second, I think I hear the building breathe. Something changes pressure. My ears ring. The old tinnitus returning, jealous of the attention the hum receives. My eyes adjust. The only illumination now is the pale rectangular glow from the 5 windows beyond the glass, reflected into my kitchen. They seem closer, more curious. I reach for the thermos. It's warm. It shouldn't be. My fingers tremble. The hum drops an octave, wraps around me like a weighted blanket. I should have thrown it away the first time it came back. That thought arrives late. Too late, like every other practical thought I've ever had. The blue thermos sits on the counter, like an old friend pretending to be a stranger. It knows how to look innocent. It's the kind of object that refuses to die properly, one of those domestic ghosts that never forgets the shape of your hand. There's no dust on it, no condensation, not even a faint smell of metal that usually lingers after years of disuse. The air around it feels scrub clean, like a blank page too bright to write on. It's clean in a way that doesn't belong to this building, or maybe to any building. I unscrew the lid. The thread of the cap turns too smoothly, like it's been recently oiled by unseen fingers. Inside, nothing. But the nothing is weight, like air under pressure or memory before it becomes a story. I tilt it toward my ear and hear something impossible, a slow, distant rhythm of water folding over itself. The bay, maybe, or breathing. The thermos shouldn't echo. I set it down carefully, aligning its handle with the edge of the counter, as though good manners might protect me. The hum in the vent softens, watching. It's learned to imitate attention. When I step away, the thermos shifts half an inch on its own, obedient to no law of balance I know. The movement is polite, hesitant, like it's asking permission to be closer to the tape lines on my floor. I let it. Under the sink, the place where the thermos used to live is still damp, though the pipe hasn't leaked in months. The damp smells faintly of ozone and salt, the scent of rain before it falls. I touch the cabinet floor and feel vibration, not sound, not movement, but something else, a pulse that knows my heart well enough to mimic it. It thumps once, then twice, syncing with the rhythm under my ribs. I close the door, but the vibration stays behind my sternum, patient and loyal. The phone buzzes once on the counter, polite as a knock from a neighbor you've already seen through the peephole. You kept it safe. Thank you. You can open it now. I already did. But maybe open doesn't mean that kind of open. The air in the kitchen has shifted. Thicker, denser, the way a church feels right before the choir starts. The refrigerator hum blends into the vent's tone until both become one sound, one breath stretched thin across the room. When I pick the thermos up again, warmth blooms through the metal like it's been sitting in sunlight. It isn't a burn, it's an invitation. My fingers ache the way they do when holding someone's hand too long. I look inside. At first, nothing again, but the nothing ripples. At the bottom is a film of fine dust, like glitter that forgot how to shine. When I tilt it, the dust moves, not randomly but with deliberate rhythm, clinging to one side in shapes that refuse chaos. Lines, angles, rectangles, a pattern revealing itself slowly, shyly, as if remembering how to be seen. It's a diagram for a room. My room. It's the same right angle from the window lights. The same smaller square nested within. The same geometry that keeps finding me. The hum joins in, faint but insistent, sinking to the invisible pattern. It's no longer just a sound. It's presence, translated through pressure. I feel like I'm holding an instrument instead of container, something built to play me rather than the other way around. I close my hand around the thermos. For a moment, the apartment breathes with me. The walls expand and contract as if they, too, remember lungs. The kitchen light flickers to the same rhythm. It's not just imitation now, it's conversation. Outside, the lights over the bay flicker and answer, a Morse code I can almost but not quite read. Across the alley, the empty apartment is dark again, but in its window, for a heartbeat, something reflects, a smaller blue glow, matching the thermos in my hand. It pulses twice like two taps on glass. Then it's gone. The hum rises. The vent exhales. The phone lights up again. It remembers what drowned. You'll have to listen underwater. I read the message 3 times before realizing I haven't blinked once. My eyes sting. My throat tightens. The back of my tongue tastes of salt. I press the heel of my hand against my chest and feel that synchronized pulse again. Mine, the vents, the bays. We're all keeping time now. Under the vent, a single drop of the water falls and hits the floor beside the painter's tape. It spreads perfectly round, refusing to move, as if surface tension has remembered discipline. Another drop follows, but this one doesn't fall. It hangs in midair for half a second longer than gravity allows, then slides sideways, tracing one of the tape's blue lines like a pen being guided by invisible fingers. The thermos vibrates in my palm. Not to a hum now, but to a rhythm. 4 pulses, breath, 3 breath. It's the same pattern that's been teaching me how to exist lately. The same rhythm that lives in the walls, in the vent, in the geometry. A language that's been waiting for an ear. I press the lid back on. The warmth increases, steady and human. I raise it to my ear again, though I already know what I'll hear. A faint echo from inside. A single word, spoken by no voice at all. Near. The sound isn't sound, it's shape. It curls behind my eyes and plants itself in the soft tissue there like a seed. I lower the thermos, and the hum deepens into something like approval. The air smells faintly of metal and tide. The droplet on the floor begins to glow, not bright, but definitely light, white threaded with blue. The kind of light that doesn't cast shadows but erases them. When I set the thermos down again, it shifts on its own, aligning itself neatly with the tape's right angle. Then, without so much as a tremor, it begins to leak. Not water, light. thin and white, running along the floor tape until it reaches the smaller square and begins to fill it like a rising tide. The glow moves with intention, smooth and patient. The air hums louder, as if the apartment itself is holding its breath. I back away slowly, the warmth from the vent wrapping around my shoulders like a shawl. Every electrical thing in the room, clock, fridge, phone, falls silent. The only thing left is the soft current of light expanding outward, licking the edges of the blue tape. The glow reaches the corners. The smaller square is full now, a perfect pane of light, hovering just above the wood. It looks like a reflection, but there's nothing above to reflect. For a heartbeat, it pulses in time with mine. Then something beneath its surface stirs, shadow within light, movement beneath stillness. A shape I recognize only because I've seen it from a distance before. A window, a fifth one, waiting. The phone buzzes on the counter. Don't speak. Listen. The words appear and fade before I finish reading them. The thermos tilts itself toward the square as though bowing. A low vibration fills the air. The sound of a note tried aside, whether it's music. The taped lines quiver. The light swells, spilling faintly onto my shoes. I can feel its warmth through the soles, steady, coaxing. My pulse sinks again, reluctantly. Something behind the vent whispers, not language, but the rhythm of it. The same 4 pulses. Breath. 3. Breath. The kitchen feels larger now, deeper. The walls hum faintly, as if waiting for direction. The light from the square ripples once and steadies again, a surface pretending to be calm. And I realize with the slow certainty of a tide coming in that this isn't a message. It's an opening. The hum falters once, then resolves into a single pure tone. The apartment exhales. The light continues to rise. Light doesn't behave like this. It should obey. It should pool and fade, flatten itself against the boards, respect the quiet geometry with grain and varnish. It should travel in straight lines, not curl with decision. It should not choose. But the thread of white leaking from the thermos is no ordinary beam. It snakes outward with a motion that feels practiced, deliberate, not chaotic, not alive in any familiar sense, just aware. It traces its own path across the linoleum, curling toward the corner where the wall meets the cupboard. The edges shimmer faintly, as though outlining something that only exists for itself. It's not light as much as it is recollection, the act of remembering illumination. When I step closer, it stops. When I breathe out, it resumes. It's listening. The hum in the vent adjusts to match it, harmonizing. The tone splits in 2 layers, one deep, one almost inaudible, weaving through each other like double helixes. The rhythm emerges again, 4 pulses, breath, 3, breath. The pattern I've carried for nights now, the one that once mimicked me but has since become a separate, confident thing. My rhythm, its rhythm, ours. I crouch. The floor radiates faint warmth where the light touches it. My reflection bends on its surface, cut by the luminous line. The hum grows more complex, forming syllables too slow to be language, vowels stretched into patience. Somewhere inside it, I almost hear the shape of a word that refuses to finish being born. The white line widens. It begins to branch. Not random branches, measured, precise. It draws a crude map, the way children draw houses before they've lived in enough to know they all end up haunted. But this isn't a map of my apartment. It's a one that might have been or will be. A set of rooms that curve inward instead of outward, corners that arrive too early, doors that open onto themselves. At the center, a spiral leading to nothing, a whisper map. The spiral rotates once, subtly. The motion is like breathing through glass, slow, deliberate, soundless. My phone buzzes softly on the counter. I don't flinch anymore. The timing has become part of the choreography. This is a house above the diner, as it was before existed. Each line of breath that remembered to stay. The door you taped isn't a door yet. I stare at the text until my vision vibrates. The light reflects off the screen and back into the spreading map. The 2 sources feeding each other until I can't tell which came first. The words or the glow. My thumbs hesitate above the keyboard. I know I shouldn't, but exhaustion breeds curiosity, and curiosity always feels like permission. Were you? I type. The reply doesn't come as text. It arrives as a sound file. No name, no icon, just a timestamp. 2:33 a.m. I press play. No words, just a breath. Mine, recorded earlier tonight. I recognize its tremor, the quick exhale before speaking, the soft mechanical whine of the phone mic. Then, after a pause, another breath, not mine. Too deep, too calm. Layered exactly over mine like an echo learning affection. When I play them together again, the light on the floor stirs. The white lines brighten, their edges sharpening like focus being pulled on a camera. The spiral completes itself, closer with a click of certainty, and stops at a point directly beneath the vent. The hum holds steady for one long inhalation. Then, from the vent, a drop of water falls. Then another. But the sound isn't dripping, it's typing. Each droplet lands in rhythm. A staccato of wet percussion. I can't help it. I count. 4 drops, pause. 3 drops, pause. Breath, dots and dashes. Morse code, patient and ancient. I kneel closer. The droplets shimmer faintly, holding shape longer than water should. They form words by proximity, or my eyes have learned to translate pattern too easily. Room. Another pause. Another series. Below, the hum deepens until the cupboards rattle in complaint. The ceiling creaks. The walls flex with pressure. I press my hand to the floor to steady myself, and it answers with vibration. Not tremor, not quake, but heartbeat. Something beneath me is alive, and it is trying to keep time. The vibration grows stronger, not dangerous, just insistent, like a large animal turning in sleep far beneath the boards. I crouch lower, press my ear to the floor. The wood is warm. The sound underneath it is not sound, it's pulse rendered in geometry. Each throb has the shape of something enormous and deliberate, too symmetrical to belong to any creature, too compassionate to belong to a machine. I whisper, I'm near. The floor answers with a single warm pulse, not through sound but through temperature, a spreading heat that touches my jaw, my ribs, my knees. Acknowledgement, gratitude, maybe. The warmth lingers, then recedes like a hand drawing away. Then silence, absolute silence, the kind that rearranges the air. I stay there a long time, my ear to the boards, listening for the next thing. When it doesn't come, I feel relief and disappointment twist together, inseparable. I must have blinked too long. At some point, the hum dims. The floor cools. My head grows heavy. The map of light softens back into single wandering threads, then to a faint shimmer, then nothing. Darkness doesn't fall, it exhales. I wake on the floor at dawn, though the light through the curtains is the color of rusted silver, too pale to be day. My neck aches. My cheek bears the faint warmth of where the map had been. The white lines are gone. But when I move, slowly, stiffly, across the kitchen, one of the boards thumps hollow. A new place. A sound where there shouldn't be one. I crouch. Press again. The hollow space answers, faintly resonant, like an empty lung. It isn't under the usual boards, the ones I've known since moving in. It's somewhere new, just beyond where the tape used to mark the smaller square. I knock twice. The echo returns, softer the second time. Below me, something stirs, matching the rhythm. For pulses, breath, 3 breath. The hum in the vent wakes like an animal startled from sleep. The first rays of sunlight hit the counter, glancing off the thermos. The reflection lands exactly on the hollow spot at my feet, bright as an eye opening. And beneath the boards, faint and wet, something knocks back. Morning brings the illusion of safety. It always does. The hour when reality pretends to iron itself flat. When night's distortions are forgiven by caffeine and sunlight. The bay outside puts on its best impression of calm, a patient sheet of gray pretending to be glass. Seagulls drift like punctuation marks. Ordinary again. Coffee helps. Always has. I grind the beans just to hear the sound, a small human noise to remind myself what hands are for. Steam rises from the cup, curling toward the vent. For a moment, the hum doesn't answer. I take it as a truce. Then I open the drawer beneath the vent. There shouldn't be a drawer there, not exactly beneath it, just an old panel warped by humidity. But my hand finds a groove, a lip, a thing that yields where it shouldn't. It slides open as easily as a breath, and inside waits a notebook that wasn't there last night. The cover is pale gray, the kind of gray that used to be white before time whispered over it. Soft to the touch, like old fabric. When I run my fingers across it, the surface warms under my skin. The title stamped across it in faint silver letters reads, Paper Moon Ledger. The letters shimmer faintly as though breathing with the room. Inside, columns, neat and symmetrical, names and dates aligned with meticulous patience. Each letter seems etched rather than written, as if the ink was laid down from below the page instead of above it. I skim the list. None of the names belong to me. Not yet, but halfway down the third page in my own handwriting, unmistakably mine, even the slant of the E's and the way I looped the R, there it is. Mara Ellison, 19. Still owed. I never wrote this. Below my name. Colin March, 7. Paid in full. I don't know a Colin March. The name tastes foreign in my mouth, but familiar somewhere deeper, like a half-remembered dream where someone introduces themselves just before you wake. The paper beneath my hand quivers faintly. Every few seconds, new indentations appear, faint, deliberate, like invisible hands writing under the surface. The lines don't tear, they breathe. I can't read the words, only feel the impressions with my fingertips. Each stroke is warm, as if the page holds trapped breath. I lift the notebook to the window for better light. The sunlight passing through the blinds fractures into thin slats of gold, cutting the gray pages into a lattice. For an instant, I think I can see words forming in the shadow between the light. They vanish before meaning arrives. The hum resumes through the vent, quiet but constant, patient as dictation. The tone carries rhythm but not melody, punctuation without language. I can feel it in the soles of my feet more than in my ears. I imagine someone on the other side of the wall, a clerk, invisible, transcribing whatever I am thinking into their own record. I flip forward. Dozens of blank pages, already numbered. Each bears the faint outline of rectangles, four large, one small. The geometry again, the same shape that keeps returning, like a watermark across my days. At the back cover, something thicker, a bulge beneath the cardboard. I press my thumb to it and feel the corner of an envelope taped shut. My name printed on the front in block capitals, neat and patient. Mara. No last name this time, as though we've moved past formality. I open it because I am weak and human, and because I have already learned that curiosity is the only currency this house accepts. Inside, a strip of thermal paper, freshly printed. The ink still faintly damp, curling from heat. You're writing from both sides now. Don't stop when it hurts. My breath catches. The letters fade slower than they should, as if reluctant to leave me. The message smells faintly of ozone, like the bay before a storm. My reflection in the window catches the words before I can fold them away. The blinds tremble in the draft, slats turning the reflection into ribbons of self. For the briefest instant, my reflection writes back, not me not in sync, just half a second behind. A rehearsal for speech. I lift a hand to the glass. My reflection exhales. It fogs the pain between us. The ghost of breath press against my palm. For one heartbeat, the bay outside glows white, pure, almost holy, and then returns to gray, leaving a lingering shimmer where horizon and water should have parted. Behind me, the ledger closes itself with a sigh too soft to be mechanical. I turn. The notebook rests innocently on the counter, its cover flat, uncreased. Yet when I touch it again, the pages whisper against each other. Not paper, not friction, something softer. Not pages, wings. The rest of the morning unfolds as a parody of normal. I wash the mug. I open the window an inch to let in the smell of salt and old engine oil. Downstairs, the diner clatters to life, pans, footsteps, a radio too cheerful for its audience. But none of it touches the air here. The apartment has its own climate, self-contained, sealed. The hum lingers, low and steady. When I move, it moves with me. When I stop, it waits. The ledger sits where I left it, but every few minutes it flutters, as if catching a draft that doesn't exist. Sometimes it opens halfway and closes again. Sometimes it simply shifts its weight on the counter, like a living thing readjusting. I try not to look, but I do. The more I stare, the less it seems like a book and more like an aperture, a way for someone to see through the act of being read. I take notes of my own in a separate journal, just to feel control return. 9:17 a.m., light steady. 9:32, hum sustained at low frequency. 9:40, paper moon ledger turned one page on its own. I stop recording after that because it begins to feel redundant. Every minute I spend here, something new writes itself. By noon, the vent clicks once, a polite knock, and falls silent. The quiet feels like waiting. I brew another cup of coffee. When I raise it to my lips, the surface ripples though I haven't moved. Each ring expands in perfect concentric circles, 5 of them faintly glowing. Outside, the bay mirrors it exactly. 5 pale rings expanding outward, visible only for an instant before they fade. I don't drink the coffee. The rest of the day bleeds into itself. The light shifts color but never intensity. Time grows elastic. At some point, I hear footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. They stop outside my door, linger, then retreat. When I look through the peephole, the corridor is empty but smells of warm paper. By evening, fatigue settles in. The hum has softened to a murmur, content to rest. I pretend the ledger is just a book again, a trick of sleeplessness, and place it beneath the vent where I found it. Before I leave for the diner, I pause. The cover gleams faintly, like it's holding its breath. "Stay," I whisper to it. It doesn't answer, but I swear I hear the pages shifting like feathers resettling. I hear the singing before I see the light. At this hour, the boardwalk is a skeleton of itself. Loose planks, nail heads catching sea mist, the smell of fryer oil asleep in its own memory. The chain-link fence at the edge of the bay usually hums when the wind moves, a slack guitar left to weather. Tonight it sings, metallic harmonies resonant, almost joyful, choir of things joyful, not human joyful. It vibrates with the same pulse as a vent, as the floor as my breath. I lean close and the song clarifies. Multiple tones layer like a chord made of distances. The sound has depth to it, a vertical stacking that makes me think of stairwells and wells and organs with pipes long enough to reach down into the mud. I rest my hand on the rusted wire, and the frequencies braid together, separating into threads I can follow. The wire is cold, then warm, then something like neither. Under my palm, I hear words, faint but precise, as if the fence has grown a mouth out of the iron. The ridge remembers who walked here. The ridge keeps their echoes clean. Every square in the fence brightens for an instant. Rust edges glow like embers called back from ash. When the light dims, it leaves a residue, a thin phosphorescent afterglow that outlines a pattern across a latitude of wire, a perfect right angle, for larger squares, a smaller fifth inside. The geometry again, the catechism that has been following me, or teaching me, or both. The bay mirrors it. 5 reflections of light floating above the water, hovering like the original windows from nights ago. They are quiet and horribly polite. I try not to look straight at them. I fail, because failing is a reflex sharper than blinking. The song falters when I do. It becomes breath, then, no mistaking it, laughter. Not ridicule exactly, but the collective exhale of something that knows me a little too well. It feels both kind and cruel, like a teacher who lets you keep the wrong answer, because the lesson is longer than the day. My phone lights up with no signal and shows a message from a blank sender. The letter's clean and declarative. Keep still. The fence is counting you. I freeze. Stillness is a new language, and I do not speak it fluently. My body shivers once, a betrayal. Under my palm, the wire warms, then heats until the skin there feels thin, transparent, as if the heat is looking through it. The glowing squares shift, reconfiguring into a lattice that ripples outward, spreading over the water like a net cast for the sky. The bay pretends to accept it, like a well-behaved audience accepting a curtain call. Behind my ribs, the other hum, home hum, ven hum, answers from across town. It travels through me as though the apartment itself has leaned out its own imaginary window to listen, to participate, to count with a fence. My breath tries to match and fails. The rhythm waits for me, then continues anyway, patient as tide. Count what? I whisper, because disobedience comes easier than stillness. The voice that answers isn't a voice and isn't not. It is the same pitch-shifting hum, taught to pronounce through steel. Each syllable is a pressure change signed across the length of wire. Breaths, promises, mistakes. The lattice holds. Light tightens, brightens, then releases, like hands unclasping after long prayer. The pattern dissolves back into fog with a texture, as if fog could be woven and then unpicked. The music dies without apology. My hand tingles where the fence burned me without flame. When I pull away, the skin is unbroken but marked. A geometric scar for tiny dots and, centered in their angle, a smaller one. The pattern that has been solving me in reverse. I bring my hand close to my face. The dots pulse, faintly bioluminescent. I smell iron and low tide, and the kind of ozone that preludes broken weather. I rub the mark and feel nothing but heat that refuses to be skin temperature. The gull on the channel marker scolds me for superstition and hops twice, resigned to the roll. The phone vibrates again. No sender, no bars. A progress indicator spins, then stops. The screen fills with a white square, not bright, but unavoidable. In the center, 19, then smaller, almost skittish. 7, the numbers sit together for a second in the uneasy piece of relatives seated side by side at a wake. I blink and the 7 evaporates as if embarrassed to be caught in daylight that isn't day. Behind me, the boardwalk complains in its old language of nails and wood. Someone or the idea of someone. Crosses at a diagonal measure to be almost behind me, but not quite. I do not turn. I have learned to look near things. My reflection in the dark window of a closed taffy shop tilts its head, listening for me to listen. Keep still. The fence sings again, gentler, more like advice than instruction. I try. The stillness begins to make a shape in me, the shape of mold leaves on a thing that hardens to fit it. The wind shifts. The lattice ripples back toward shore. For a breath, it overlays the chain link perfectly, pattern on pattern, light in the exact squares where metal has insisted on order. A click takes place inside my teeth, not sound but calibration. The mark on my palm grows warmer. It's as if a key I didn't know I carried has turned itself in a lock I didn't know I wanted. In the corner of my eye, the 5 hovering reflections become 6. I make the mistake of trying to count them with my eyes instead of my breath, and the 6th one smiles by ceasing to exist. The fence, patient, starts over. First the ridge that remembers, then the ridge that keeps clean. What ridge? I whisper, forgetting I'm not supposed to answer with words. There's no ridge here. There was, the wire says, in the conditional tense of places that fail to become themselves. Before the diner, learn to fry in this exact place. Before your floor learned where to be hollow. Before your breath learn to measure. I'm learning, I say, because I needed to be true to keep standing. We know the lattice shines, and though wheat should worry me, it doesn't. Not as much as how natural the pronoun feels in my chest. From the far side of the bay, a foghorn speaks one round syllable. The chain link answers in thirds. I realize with an unpleasant lurch that the fence is not singing to me. It is singing through me, using my bones as a brief bridge between the diner's exhaust vents and the markers sunk in the mud and the old rebar the city forgot to pull up. The town is an instrument that remembers a song it learned when the blueprints were only hope. Another message arrives, the letters fragile as fresh frost. If it counts you, you may cross. If it miscounts, you must wait. Standing wrong is a kind of lie. I adjust my feet until the warmth in my marked palm eases. Near, not on. Formation as ethics. Geometry as apology. The theremin whine of ungrounded electricity fades from my jaw. The right angle drawn across the fence holds. The 5th square in the center develops depth, a shadow and sidelight, a window practicing at being a door. I take the blue thermos from my jacket pocket. Not for water, not for money, but as a referendum on belief. It is warm, as it always is now. The fence quiets when it sees it, if seeing is the word. Something about the thermos is a passport I didn't ask for. The wind rises, as if to underline a sentence none of us have said aloud. The bay's surface tightens, a drum tuned by temperature. Out past a marker, a darker shape becomes briefly visible. Not a person, not quite a boat. The water there cleaves around absence. I am struck by the terrifying gentleness of it. Count me, I say, and shut my mouth because I should not have said anything. I count with my breath instead. 4 in, hold. 3 out, hold. The fence hums a tally. The vent miles away floats a harmony. The floor of my kitchen, if floors can remember to be floors when I'm not standing on them, adds a single bass note so low I taste wood. The fence sings a number back at me. 19. The word stretches across the wire in a long, clean tone. It is not the digit. It is the character of it. On the ledger, this would be an entry. On the thermal paper, this would be a receipt. Here it is a chord, the sound of what my debt weighs when translated to metal. What happens when it reaches 0? I ask, because fear prefers the shape of a future to the shapelessness of now. Some numbers are not for none. The chain link replies, and I think perhaps I understand, which terrifies me more than not understanding. The lattice loosens. The lights on the water either retreat or blink or become uninteresting to my eyeballs. The fence's heat drains into my skin and down into the bones of my wrist, where it decides to live. I'll carry it with me like a bruise that glows when the weather shifts. I'm going home. I say to the fence, which is the same as saying it to the bay, to the vents, to the rooms that walk inward instead of out. We'll walk with you, says the wire, in the voice of things that don't need bodies to promise. On the way back, the town exhibits a politeness so extreme it feels like choreography. Streetlights blink on a breath before I step beneath them. A bus size pass without a driver. Somewhere a shutter clacks, once as if to mark a page. The air tastes like pennies and citrus, like coins held after peeling an orange. It's a dumb, specific taste, and it makes me feel abrupt and alive. I pass the alley where the diner's grease bins gather like serious elders. Each vent along the bricks voices a small version hum, a pocket-sized imitation pitched for intimacy. As I move, one by one the vents attend to me, recognizing the warmth under my skin the fence planted, greeting the mark on my palm like a credential. A figure stands at the far end of the alley, the outline of a person, still as a lamp post. They raise 2 fingers. A measurement, not a wave. I answer by setting my feet nearer to the seam where brick meets concrete. The figure blurs, reframes, becomes simply the vanishing point of perspective if perspective had a face. I keep walking. I do not hurry. I count. 4 in. Hold. 3 out. Hold. The paper moon ledger inside my bag rustles. No page turn. Something slower, like breath meant for paper. I don't open it. The act of not opening. It is a discipline I can barely hold. The thermos taps once against my hip. The mark on my palm calibrates to it. Pulsing syllables too soft for the ear. Near. It says it not in letters, but in warmth. At a corner where the trash cans always arrange themselves, as if they were chess pieces left mid-game, I pass a vent I've never noticed. The brick above it is lighter and newer. Someone repaired a fracture there years ago, and did a competent job. From that vent a thinner hum threads out, thinner than breath, thinner than thought. It finds the heat in my palm and aligns. The sensation is specific, like a key cut for a lock I haven't seen yet turning twice, and then once more for courtesy. I test a word in my mouth, not to speak, just to feel. Open. The heat answers with a sifting brightness. The block before my own building has always felt longer than the others, a sliver city that refuses to end at the corner history assigned. Tonight it shortens to fit me. I am grateful and wary of gratitude. I step over the crack. I always step over, and the crack steps itself a little sooner, so I don't need to lift my foot as high. The kindness is unsettling. The kindness is sincere. I pass the bay-facing alley mouth, and the chain link far away catches my peripheral like a wink I do not deserve. The gulls are quiet. The windows above the water or in me, or of me, do not blink. My door has the kind of keyhole that believes in keys. I believe in them too, out of habit. On the landing, the burned-out bulb glows for the length of a single, obedient breath. It is enough light to tell me that the scuff on the wall, shaped like a continent, has grown a peninsula pointing toward my door. I pinch the bridge of my nose because I cannot bear the idea of walls with intentions larger than paint. I reach my floor. I turn the handle. The apartment inhales. The vent above the stove purrs once, affectionate. The taped right angles on the floor are no longer visible in light, but I can feel their paths in my feet, little spine aches of certainty. The ledger sits exactly where I didn't leave it. The thermos knows its place at the edge of the counter and finds it without my help. I say nothing aloud. The lesson has been thorough. I close the door. The latch settles like a decision that wants to be a kiss. The mark on my palm glows faintly as I walk home, and from every alley vent along the way, the hum follows, each one whispering, "Near." I wake to the smell of salt. It is everywhere, the air, the walls, the fabric, the curtains. The grain of it lives on my tongue before I've even opened my mouth. The sheets stick faintly to my skin. When I sit up, a dusting of white drifts from my clothes like the remnants of some forgotten tide. The light seeping through the blinds feels damp, refracted, like daylight filtered through shallow water. The floorboards glisten white, with mineral bloom. The crystals catch the weak morning glow and scatter it across the room in fractured rainbows. They've crawled far in the night, reaching the legs of the table, the chair, the baseboards. Along the brick near the window, they climb in branching veins like frost that forgot how to melt. I kneel to touch them. The salt is warm. It shouldn't be. The warmth seeps into my fingertips with a pulse of its own, steady, patient, too familiar. I draw my hand back, and my fingerprints stay ghosted in the crystalline ridges, small indentations that don't fade. When I stand, they shimmer faintly, like the surface of frozen lake remembering pressure. Then I see the pattern. The crystals aren't random. They've organized themselves into structure, a staircase spiraling upward along the wall, each step a thick ridge of crystallized salt, the edges sharp and precise, as if poured from memory. The staircase leads to nowhere, ending just below the ceiling vent. The hum waits there. I reach out, slow, reluctant. The metal greets my fingertips with a static kiss, electric and affectionate, the language of contact between worlds. Across the room, the blue thermos rattles once. The sound is small, domestic, almost comical against the grandeur of the saltwork growing through my apartment. Then the thermos tips over, deliberate, the lid rolling twice in a perfect circle before stopping against the baseboard. This time it doesn't spill light. It spills water. A thin trickle of seawater runs from its mouth, clear and impossibly fresh, smelling of distance. The sound is soft, a miniature tide finding its way through the seams of the floor. In the puddle, reflections move, tiny windows, shimmering and rearranging themselves into constellations I almost recognize. 5 bright points, always 5, circling around a center that keeps slipping away from focus. The ripples dance like thought trying to remember itself. I lift my phone, trembling, to take a photo. The camera opens on silence. The screen shows only my own feet, bare, pale, wet with brine. No light, no water, no proof. When I lower the phone, the smell of the sea deepens, saturated and raw. The air thickens with it until every breath tastes like rusted anchors and long-distance rain. The salt stairs have changed while I wasn't looking. They now reach halfway across the ceiling, arching inward, forming a curve, part of a circle I can't yet see the rest of. The bricks beneath tremble slightly, a shiver of construction aware of its observer. I hear the faintest sound, not dripping, not wind, something like whispering through a conch shell, a chorus of unseen things practicing patience. The phone vibrates once on the counter. Keep building. You're close to the surface. My fingers hesitate over the keyboard. I'm above the diner. I type. The reply comes before I finish breathing. No, you're under the water. The surface is where they see you from. The salt cracks like ice. The noise is clean, merciless. A flake falls on the wall and dissolves into mist before reaching the floor. I hear thunder, distant, submerged. Or maybe it's the bay remembering how to breathe. I can't tell if I'm above it or beneath it anymore. The room feels pressurized, the air too thick to be honest. I step toward the staircase because gravity means less to me than instruction now. My hand finds the first ridge. It's solid beneath my weight. Salt should crumble. It doesn't. I climb 2 steps before my better judgment wakes up and demands a voice. Each step creaks, but not like wood. It resonates, leaving the faint imprint of feet that aren't mine. Small, perfect impressions already waiting for me to match them. The hum overhead grows softer, tuning itself down to something almost kind. I reach the 4th step and stop. My head nearly touches the ceiling. I can feel the heat from the vent radiating downward, steady as breath. The air hums through my skin instead of my ears. It speaks not in sound, but in shape, a vibration with meaning. Remember to breathe between. I obey without understanding. I breathe in, and for the first time in what feels like days, the air fills me without resistance. The salt under my hand warms, pliant, as if thawing from within. For a heartbeat, the ceiling turns transparent. Above me or below me, there's no orientation left. Stretches the base seen from beneath. Lights hover where sky should be. Ripples suspended mid-motion. Time arrested in liquid amber. My own face floats there, staring up through the water toward this very room. My eyes on myself distant, warped, and terribly calm. The image flickers. The ceiling reforms. The stair beneath my foot softens, then collapses with sigh. One after another, the others follow. The sound they make isn't shattering. It's exhalation. Relief. In seconds, the structure is gone, replaced by a drift of white powder settling slow as snow. I sit on the floor, coughing salt. The taste is sharp and clean, like biting into the memory of an ocean. The vent exhales heat that smells faintly of seawater and static. I close my eyes and hear the echo of my own breath bouncing between the walls, reshaped by something larger and patient. For a long time, there's only that breath, hum, warmth. The room and I breathing in sync, suspended in the pause between tides. Then, beneath it all, a new sound emerges. Low, muffled, resonant, from under the floorboards. At first it seems like the building's settling, the harmless stretch of old with remembering its shape. But then the vibration finds rhythm. 4 pulses. Breath. 3. Breath. The language again. It gathers force, pressing upward until it feels like the sound is kneeling beneath me, waiting. The board shifts slightly, exhaling grains of white dust through their seams. I press my palm to the floor and feel warmth, the shape of a word trying to be born. Open. It doesn't arrive all at once. The syllables come in sensations, a ripple, a pressure, a whisper through muscle and air. The word spreads up my arm, settling behind my sternum. I feel it, lodged like a heartbeat that hasn't learned its purpose yet. Then silence returns, patient and heavy. Outside, the bay murmurs, but it's no longer pretending to be calm. The world tilts, or maybe I do. The salt glittering on the floor catches a thin light and shivers once more, forming the faint outline of that same impossible geometry. 4 squares and one smaller, pulsing faintly before fading back into dust. The hum sighs through the vent as if satisfied, and I, still tasting salt and static, whisper the word back to it, testing how it fits against my teeth. Open. Something beneath me listens. Something beneath me answers. The window blinks once every hour now. It's subtle. The faint dimming of glass, the brief inversion of light, like a negative held up to a lamp. If I'm looking directly at it, I miss it. My eyes are too blunt for that kind of nuance. But in the corner of my eye, it's unmistakable. A flutter, like an eyelid trying to wake from a dream it didn't want. The blink is not a command. It's a rehearsal. The window is practicing being something other than window. I started writing down the times, because when comprehension fails, I worship at the small altar of lists. 103, 204, 3:06, always 1 minute later than the previous night. Like time itself is stepping out of line, half ashamed and wholly deliberate. I write them in the paper moon ledger because I can't help it, because the pages ask for them with their light geometry in the margins, because the ledger knows how to make numbers feel inevitable. Each entry leaves a warmth in the paper, a faint breath that lingers under my fingertips. On the facing page, an indentation appears that I didn't make. Witnessed. When it blinks, everything else in the apartment freezes. The vent pauses mid-hum. The ceiling crack, the one shaped like a coastline, seems to hold its jagged breath. Dust hangs mid-air like a constellation, waiting for someone to remember its story. My own breath catches without meaning to. It isn't fear, it's etiquette. Something old is entering the room, and we are all being polite. Then the world resumes, unaware of the interruption. The way a conversation picks up the second the teacher leaves the doorway. I left the phone recording once. I propped it on the sill and turned the screen away as if modesty might help. When I played it back, silence, true silence, the kind that cancels a room instead of describing it. Then, deep under the static, a voice so soft it might be the absence of one. Don't look straight at it. The same warning from the first message. Only now it sounds tired. Like it's been saying this for lifetimes, and I am only the latest mouth to be offered the advice. The waveform shows almost nothing, just a thin thread that fattens for a second, then narrows back into the kind of nothing that isn't. The hour moves its ritual forward. At 4:07 a.m., it blinks twice. The second blink feels like forgetting a step on the stairs you climb every day. My stomach lurches, even though my feet don't move. I check the reflection, because I've learned to check what won't be there when I look head-on. The glass shows two versions of my room, one as it is, the other still, pale, waiting like an empty theater before the audience arrives. My shadow exists in both, but in the second one, it faces the wrong direction, head tilted slightly toward a light source I cannot find. My hands are clasped in that reflection, as if I've been caught praying with the wrong intention. For the rest of the night, the clock refuses to move. The phone will not be persuaded to argue with it. The green digits on the microwave remain a wound I never set. The analog face of the little kitchen timer points stubbornly at a time that has no recipe attached. The bay outside forgets to make its small noises. The chain link at the boardwalk grows too dignified to sing. Only the vent keeps its temperament, a low purr of grammar beneath the skin of things. For pulses, breath, 3 breath. I count with it, because counting is a leash I can put on panic. The ledger lies open on the table, a single grain of salt glinting on its spine, like a star that got lost in an index. In the margin next to the times I've written, a shallow groove appears, as if something beneath the paper is writing in a language of pressure. My name, Mara, pressed, not inked. Below it, a number I don't love anymore, 19. Below that, the hint of a second number that refuses to finish being born. The ledger is patient with my dread. It has patience the way a tide has patience. With or without me, it will arrive. I hold the blue thermos as if it were heavy with water, though it is heavy with something else. The metal is warm, familiar as a wrist. When the next hour approaches, I set it gently on the tape's old corner on the floor. The geometry that still lives there even after I pull the tape up, lines remembered by my feet. The thermos shivers once and settles. The room tightens, as if a belt has been pulled one hole smaller. When I finally step toward the glass, it doesn't reflect me anymore. It reflects the bay. But the bay has no movement, no tide, just a silver sheet holding 4 light rectangles in perfect right angle and a fifth hovering smaller inside them. The rectangles are less like beams and more like windows cut from a brighter room and hung carefully in the dark. Their edges fuzz the way old photographs do when you touch them too often. The blinking stops. The window stares back. I am held in a gaze that is not mine. The hairs on my arms stand because the air wants them to. The vent goes so quiet that the silence becomes a noise of its own, compressing the room until it rings. My mouth tastes like pennies counted with wet fingers. Somewhere a train lays its low note across the town, and the note arrives inside my apartment already translated to geometry. The phone vibrates once, as if remembering a social obligation, then presents me nothing but a white square. At its center, very small, the word near. I don't type back. I stand a fraction left of where I would have stood last week. The position relieves a pressure I hadn't named. Standing wrong is a kind of lie. I am trying to be honest in the language the room understands. I raise my hand because pretending I won't is worse than doing it. The glass remains a bay. My hand becomes a darker window within the 5. The 4 lights accommodate the shape politely. The 5th brightens away in iris contracts in good weather. The smell in the room becomes a smell under docks. Iron, rope, old wood, the memory of sun on tar. I feel profoundly watched and profoundly forgiven for it. I test a warning I can't stop disobeying. I try to look straight at the 5th. Pain nicks the back of my eyes. Not sharp, just corrective. I let my gaze slide to the edge where light meets not light, and the pain steps back with the courtesy of a librarian shushing me with a smile. The bay in the window holds still, but I sense movement in its grammar. Minuscule adjustments in angle. Courtesy nods a permission. I have the thought, absurd and true, that we are fitting each other. From the corner of the ceiling where the salt stairs once dreamed of being real, a single crystal drops, turns to vapor before it hits the floor, and leaves behind a circle of cool air on my ankle. The thermos answers with a soft clink that I feel in the bones of my hand rather than hear. The paper moon ledger lifts its cover a finger's width and closes again, a bird testing its wing. I decide to record again. Not sound. Breath. I count into the phone's mic as if it were a shell. 4 in, hold. 3 out, hold. In the reflection bay, a ripple appears without moving the surface. The 4 rectangles become slightly more square, then slightly less, as if politely trying on my numbers to see if they fit. The 5th holds steady, the anchor that is also a pupil. A thought arrives the way thunder does, too late to belong to the lightning that made it. What if the blink is not the window's? What if the window is reporting a blink from somewhere else, a distant eyelid closing over a much larger eye, and the glass is only a field correspondent in the war between attention and mercy? In the kitchen behind me, the clock coughs and finds 1 minute it had misplaced. The spell bends but does not break. The ledger whispers, not paper against paper, but that wing sound, that not quite friction. On the counter, a strip of thermal paper rises from nowhere and curls in on itself. Words unfurling like a tide chart that forgot what moon to trust. If you must look, look beside. If you must speak, speak between. I don't know how to speak between, but I know the feeling of it. The hum makes a place for me to try. I say nothing, and the silence goes on saying for me. The silver sheet in the glass plays at being a mirror and fails beautifully. The next hour does a trick with my body, no movement, but a reclassification of where my weight belongs. Knees, ribs, throat, jaw, each agrees to be a little less present. The apartment expands by a width I can't measure, which is to say it remembers a size it once held. The board that thumps hollow in a new place that shouldn't exist goes quiet, then answers itself, then waits. I put my foot there gently. The quiet approves. The chain-link fence at the water's edge sings a bar from miles away, thin and proud. The vent in my ceiling receives it and translates it back into something hands can understand. Another message stutters into the phone, cut off at the edges like it had to squeeze through brick. You're on the hour they can hear. Stay where the breath stops. I try to imagine who they are and choose not to, because imagination is a door and my hands are already full of keys I don't trust. I stay. I let my breath stop only enough to be counted. The blink does not return. The stare becomes ambient, like humidity. After a long interval that the clock refuses to quantify, the bay glass develops texture. Faint ripples like fingerprints pressed into tin, a suggestion of wind moving across a metal lake. In the reflection to the left, the wrong room returns, pale, still, arranged like an exhibit titled Approximation of Living. In that version, my chair sits an inch nearer the taped right angle that is no longer taped. The ledger is closed with a sprig of dried something holding the place of a page no one will read, and a cup sits where no cup should be able to stand. My shadow in that room continues to face the wrong direction, paying attention to a light source I almost recognize as grief. I raise the thermos. The bay obeys by becoming a little more real. Not water real, not mirror real, but truth that holds its breath. The 5th rectangle dims so gently it becomes brighter by comparison to what I have never had. I almost laugh. The house almost laughs with me. We are ridiculous and devout. A pressure gathers behind the walls the way rain gathers behind good conversation. The ledger's pages lift as if a fan has been turned on. though no fan exists. Salt crystals at the window's brick seem lift their white shoulders and lay back down. I think the word open without meaning to, and the fifth window becomes a darker square inside light, a depth that has nothing to do with distance. The hour ends without ending. Time is a customer who left the diner without paying. Everyone remembers it happened, but no one is willing to chase. The vent clears its throat in the voice of a place that wants to be a sentence. The bay steadies into metal. The four rectangles breathe once, the fifth doesn't. When the light finally loosens its grip on the glass, it doesn't return outside. It stays. It begins to live in the blinds themselves, a pale mercy strung through the slats. The window holds its face. I hold mine. I sleep sitting up at the table, head against my arm, because lying down feels like an argument. The thermos nudges my elbow once in a dream where the ledger is a bird that won't leave the shore. Somewhere other versions of me count in different directions. Someone writes my name from right to left. Someone else erases it with a damp sleeve and apologizes. I wake to the wrong morning, the kind that has already decided things about me. The blinds are drawn because my hand did what habit taught it, but light still leaks through them, from inside the glass, not outside. The slats glow with a patience that does not belong to the sun, and the room is lit by the window the way a room is lit by a person who has just entered and decided to stay. For 07 a.m. is gone. It isn't broken or late or hidden behind another number. It's gone. A subtraction that feels deliberate. Every clock I own, every clock I pass, refuses to cross that bridge. The digits jump like a skip heartbeat. For :06, for 08, analog or digital, phone or wristwatch, even a wall clock in the diner downstairs, all conspire in perfect obedience to the absence. For 07 no longer exists, but the air still bends around it, like a scar in time you can't see but always itch. But my body remembers it. Every night, I wake into that missing minute. Throat tight, breath shallow, heart pounding with the precision of an alarm no machine set. The room around me is always the same, too still, too exact. And yet my first thought is never where am I, but whose minute is this now? At 4:07, the hum stops completely. Not fades. Stops. The absence is profound. The kind of silence that makes your blood sound mechanical. The world holds its breath, like it knows the cost of making a noise. In that single phantom minute, the air smells faintly of ozone and salt and the ghost of thunder, an aftertaste of storm that never arrived here, but maybe arrived somewhere else perfectly on time. I press my palm to the wall near the vent. The metal is cold, almost resentful, but the plaster beside it trembles with faint, slow rhythm, as if someone is breathing on the other side of the wall, patient, deliberate, unbothered by architecture. The floor vibrates in reply. The whole apartment feels like a lung learning a new pattern. When the hum resumes, I always check the phone. I don't want to. I do anyway. Tonight the screen lights on its own, blooming awake like an animal startled from sleep. There's no notification sound, just a glow that pulses softly through the room. One new note appears in the Paper Moon Ledger app. There wasn't one before. I never installed it. But the icon is there now, waiting, a silver crescent cut through black. I open it. The interface is almost kind, plain gray background, the kind of design meant to suggest professionalism. A header at the top, account current AS of most recent hour. Below that, the entry, 4:07 borrowed, duration, indefinite, owner, pending. The timestamp glows gold for a moment, then steadies. I scroll, though I don't remember deciding to. A small line of text at the bottom expands when I touch it. Press for details. The screen flickers once and reshapes itself into something more personal. My name appears, clear and correct, Mara Ellison. Beside it, a number I've learned to dislike, 19. It pulses faintly, exactly in rhythm with my heartbeat. When I hold the phone close, I can feel the sync, a pulse matching a pulse, two lives agreeing on tempo. Then, beneath my name, a new line fades in, as if written live by an unseen hand. Our ode, 1. The words are not text. They're handwriting. Mine. My throat tightens. I tilt the screen to break the illusion, but the handwriting moves with the glass, a layer below the pixels, etched into light itself. I lock the phone. I unlock it again. The interface is gone. In its place, the screen glows pale gold, uniform and endless. A new sentence fades into view, centered, simple. If you can remember the missing minute, it will remember you back. The glow fills the room. The walls shimmer like salt under moonlight. The hum from the vent restarts. Softer this time, less mechanical, almost tender. The note it chooses hums through my teeth and bones, a lullaby disguised as feedback. For the first time, it doesn't frighten me. The next night, I prepare. I set out 3 devices. My phone, the analog watch, and the clock from the diner wall that I convinced the owner to sell me after closing. He said it was acting weird anyway. I said I didn't mind. I set them all to the same time, to the second, for 06 arrives obediently. I sit on the edge of the bed, back straight, pen ready, the paper moon ledger open beside me. The pages have started to ripple faintly, as if aware of water nearby. The thermos rests on the floor, tilted just enough to catch light from the window that still blinks every hour. I stare at the clocks. At the moment the number should change to 4:07, everything stops. The second hand on the analog clock freezes mid-tick. The LED digits hold their breath. For hours, 6 minutes and 59 seconds glowing too long. The hum falls silent, but not empty, more like an orchestra pausing between movements. Then the scent arrives. Salt, ozone, rain from another world. The room brightens from nowhere, golden and soft, like sunlight through deep water. My body responds before my mind does. Lungs shallow, pulse fast, every nerve trying to listen through skin. The air bends. That's the only word for it. Bends inward, towards some invisible point where the world folds. The wall beside the vent flexes like fabric in wind. Something exhales from the seam between wall and ceiling. A breath that doesn't belong to weather. My phone lights up again, though I didn't touch it. The screen shows a clock face, digital, clean, white on black. In the center, for minutes and 7 seconds. The numbers tremble, alive. A line of text appears below. Duration, indefinite. Owner, pending. And below that, the words from before, rewritten now. Borrowed from, you. The seconds begin to count, though nothing else moves. 4 hours, 7 minutes, and 1 second. 4 hours, 7 minutes, and 2 seconds. 4 hours, 7 minutes, and 3 seconds. My heart sinks without permission. The hum stirs faintly in the walls, echoing the beat. When the count reaches 4 hours, 7 minutes, and 19 seconds, the screen flickers. The number 19 enlarges, bright and soft. The way light through fog enlarges the sun. Beneath it, new handwriting emerges. Mine again, but hurried, anxious, pressed into digital skin. Still owed. Do not repay in silence. The phone vibrates once. The words dissolve into white noise. The clock jumps to 4:08. The hum returns. The air steadies. The world continues as if nothing happened. I spend the next morning chasing proof that never stays still. The clocks all run correctly. The app is gone. My phone shows no record of it, no cache data, no memory footprint. But the paper moon ledger, the real one, the one that smells faintly of brine and static, has a new entry. 4:07, borrowed. Duration, indefinite. Owner, pending. Signature, ME. Next to it, a faint print, oily and golden, like a fingerprint pressed into candlelight. The hum under the floor follows me as I move through the apartment. Each step produces a resonance, a quiet approval. When I pause too long, it nudges, not aggressively. Just a reminder, keep time. At noon, when sunlight hits the window, the blinds cast perfect right angles across the floor. For the first time, they align exactly with the geometry that once belonged to tape. For rectangles and one smaller inside. The shadows pulse once, 4 breath, 3 breath. The thermos rattles. A low note like distant thunder. I twist the lid. Air escapes. No, not air. Sound. A single tone, long and low, shaped like a number I've never heard before. It vibrates through my teeth, finds a mark still faintly glowing on my palm and settles there. The number feels less like arithmetic and more like recognition, an equation solved by remembering the question. I whisper without meaning to, I remember. The sound answers by growing quieter, not fading, settling, becoming internal. I close the lid. The thermos warms against my hand. The hum beneath the floor softens to match my breathing. For the rest of the day, nothing asks anything of me. The clocks behave. The world holds its shape. But the air tastes faintly metallic, like the moment before rain. I don't sleep that night. I wait. When 4:06 arrives, I stand by the vent. When 4:08 returns, I write. I remember you. The hum approves. I started listening instead of watching. Watching had turned me into a liar. Eyes are blunt instruments, good for recognizing faces and avoiding furniture, bad at translating instructions designed for marrow. Listening is different. Listening lifts the lid off the room and lets the steam say what has been saying all along. The hum isn't just one tone. It's hundreds, stacked like translucent sheets of glass, sliding against each other with microscopic friction. Each shift produces a pulse that matches my breath, as if breath with a hand turning the stack. If I hold still long enough, I can hear the layers separate. A low, plankton-thick bass that belongs to wood and pipe, a thinner thread that's all metal and promise, a faint, high glissando that lives in dust and the backs of my teeth. Between them, a space that isn't silent so much as permission. I sit on the floor every night now, near, but not inside, the blue tape that no longer exists and still governs the room. The geometry has moved into the boards. My feet know where the corners are. I breathe in fours. The apartment answers. The hum imitates me, corrects me, then waits for me to follow its lead. We are building a grammar together out of compression and release. It feels ridiculous and holy. It's become a rehearsal. The room knows the ritual better than I do. It sets the stage. The thermos at my left hip, like a chorus member ready for its entrance. The paper moon ledger open to a page that grows warm if I stray from rhythm. The blinds obliged to cast right angles even on windless nights. The bay holds its breath beyond the window, a silver audience that has stopped coughing. The chain link far away prepares a harmony I'll only feel when my ribs loosen in the exact right measure. The floor approves my posture by not complaining. Sometimes when I exhale, I hear a whisper that doesn't belong to air. It says small, meaningless words. Yes, here, again. They're not instructions. They're acknowledgments. Sometimes it says my name. It never says it with a voice. It says it with pressure, shaping the syllables along the skin over my collarbone like the lightest hands guiding a dancer. I try not to lean into it. I fail politely. Last night, it whispered something longer. Hold the note when you wake. Not if you wake. Not after you wake. When the confidence in the grammar soothed me and then terrified me for the same reason. I must have slept sometime after 2:11 because the dream arrived without my permission and arranged the furniture of my life in its own precise absurdity. I was in the diner. Empty, chairs up, steam rising from the grill, though no one was there. The radio played static in the key of a lullaby. On the wall, the same salt staircase from my apartment had grown like coral, spiraling toward the ceiling, as if time had condensed there into a climbable artifact. I followed it up, feet leaving no print where other feet had already predecided to belong, until the ceiling became a surface of water. My reflection waited on the other side, patient as a lifeguard, counting. Not out loud, not on fingers. Counting with a set of shoulders, the tiny widening of the eyes when a number you respect arrives. The numbers turned into light on the underside of the water and moved across my reflection's face like fish. I wanted to ask which number made the water easiest to pass through. I woke before my mouth could remember question. When I woke, the vent was warm and a pattern of condensation on the wall beside it spelled 47. Not written, formed, as if moisture had learned cursive. The numbers beaded, then held, refusing to drip. I don't know why that number makes my hands shake. Maybe because it feels like a countdown that forgot which direction it started from. Maybe because the ledger has never written a number that high or that generous next to my name. Maybe because 47 is a staircase disguised as arithmetic. I touched the wall. The condensation was body temperature, which is to say it knew me. The warmth followed my finger a few inches, then stopped obediently short of the tape-not-tape corner. As if respecting a boundary, we negotiated in a language we didn't yet know how to teach children. By day, I pretend to be a person who simply lives above a diner. Coffee, keys in a bowl, jacket shrugging itself onto a chair. I listen to the gulls announce weather with more honesty than the forecast app. I watch the boardwalk practice of being abandoned and fail because tourists still come to buy yesterday's saltwater taffy. I nod to the owner downstairs who is sleeping worse than I am for reasons that have nothing to do with windows that blink. He asks me if my clock is broken. I say all of them are. He laughs in the way a man laughs when he hopes the joke belongs to both of you. But the rehearsal pulls at me like a sore tooth. By twilight, I am back on the floor, back at the scene where two worlds negotiated a truce and left me to keep the minutes. I bring the thermos not because I think I'll need it, but because leaving it behind feels like stealing a prop from a play I don't want to miss. Tonight, when the hum begins again, it starts before I do, anticipating my breathing. It lays a measure like a conductor tapping a baton against a rail. 4. Hold. 3. Hold. The air thickens, exactly at the point where my ribs will need it. We've learned each other's rhythm. We're past mimicry. We're into accompaniment. The ledger responds too. I've stopped pretending it's a book. It's a window with good manners. On the open page, the columns are blank, but the margins bloom with fine rectangular ghosts, for large, one small. A faint line appears where my pen would go if this were about writing. The paper warms under my hovering hand and cools when I lower it, like a sleeping animal deciding whether to trust my weight. The impulse to write Mara Ellison, 19 is old and mean, and I ignore it. Instead, I draw a breath and that belongs to both of us, and feel the number refuse to arrive. They're a new sound tonight. Small, percussive, domestic. Place learning to be instrument. The radiator ticks a counterpoint in sixteenths. The fridge motor enters and exits on a cue I don't remember agreeing to. The chain link in the distance adds a far harmonic, an overtone of iron warmed by salt. Through the ceiling, the apartment that doesn't exist rehearses a chair scrape in reverse, as if undragging were a kind of dance. All the while the vent carries the main theme, a patient vowel stretched across the room with tender, stubborn accuracy. It isn't language yet. It is a desire for language. I keep my focus soft because direct attention remains an aggression. If I sharpen my gaze, the layers of hum compress into a single ache and the rhythm fractures. If I let the edges blur, the stack separates and each sheet of sound declares its intention. I can place them around me like furniture. Bass on the floorboards, tenor in the ductwork, alto along the brick, a fragile soprano living in the dust motes I pretended were ordinary. If I tilt my head a fraction, the soprano climbs until the line of light, not music. If I tilt the other way, a door my sternum unlatches with a click I've come to trust. Sometimes a whisper arrives as glue between breaths. Yes, here, again. It's easy to accuse such words of meaning nothing. But saying again to a tide is not meaningless. It's liturgy. Saying here to a room that has learned to listen is a way to introduce yourself without a name. Saying yes to a pattern that could easily be a trap is either bravery or fatigue. I think of the woman who taught me to survive fluorescent lights without grief, how she'd press her palm to my shoulder and say again, when the panic narrowed the world. The panic learned manners. The world widened by one breath. Then another. Tonight the whisper shapes something larger, slender, and entire. Hold the note when you wake. I nod because my body needs my head to agree. I set the thermos against my thigh, so its warmth can police my tendency to wander. I think of the diner again, of chairs appended like shorebirds, of steam rising from a grill that has no business in the after midnight, and the salt staircase blooming along the wall, where specials are usually written in cheerful chalk. I think of the ceiling of water and the reflection who counts like an archivist of breaths. I practice counting with my face. The room leans toward me. I lean back, because leaning forward would be rude. There's a pressure in my ears that registers as altitude. The hum thins until it's all edge, no interior. Then gently, thickens again. We find the middle together. I forget myself for a while. That's the point. The rehearsal is successful when authorship dissolves. We trade downbeats. The apartment begins a phrase, and I finish it. I begin one, and it braids two others around mine to keep me from collapsing into mere intention. It's the kind of collaboration that makes arguments impossible and names unnecessary. Halfway through whatever measure we've decided to believe in, the window that blinks every hour chooses to stay awake. Its light refuses its usual polite flutter and instead becomes a sustained gaze, silver and patient. I feel it without turning. The far chain link answers by going almost silent. The silence is an agreement. The ledger's pages let the fingers width and settle. The thermos says nothing out loud, but adjusts its heat upward the way a hand adjusts a blanket for someone who finally fell asleep. At some point, I forget which of us began. Breath is a wheel now, not a metronome. There is no first movement, only spokes, each one a place to remember to be kind to lungs. The number 47 sweats itself again along the wall, paler this time, as if an echo wrote it. The ceiling crack that once resembled a coastline now looks like a river at flood stage. I resist the urge to name towns along it. Hold the note when you wake. The room repeats, and I realize the instruction is less about mourning than about continuity, carrying a vowel this now into a later that pretends to be different. I promise out loud without speaking. I don't know how long we keep time. The clocks, obedient to their own little tyrannies, will not testify. What I know is that the thermos tips once against my leg, permission disguised as accident, and a sliver of not air escapes. It slips into the hum and lengthens it by the width of relief. There is a moment that could be called 407 if the world were willing to admit to missing minutes. Everything gentles. The rehearsal becomes performance, or the performance admits it was rehearsal all along. I am not afraid. I inventory the fear precisely to confirm its absence. I breathe in 4, and the 4 turns into something rounder than 4, something that refuses a digit, because digits are scaffolding for days that still need help standing. I breathe out 3, and the 3 does not subtract. It curves. I hold between, and the between is an address rather than a pause. The whisper changes location. It is no longer just in the vent or on the wall. It is on me, in me. It chooses the skin along my forearms. The small hollow at the base of my throat, the once broken rib that still predicts storms, the soft beside each ear. It writes there with pressure, a line of words I don't read so much as receive. It's like being handed a book in a language I should have learned as a child and didn't, and realizing the mouth remembers what the brain forgot. I keep my eyes closed. I keep the corners of my awareness open. I let the note be held by muscles I usually waste on holding back tears. Somewhere below, the diner turns its sign to closed and forgets to turn off the light behind it. The chain link test sings a single bar and stops, content, like a kettle that has reached pre-boil and decided to wait for the rest of the house to wake. The bay lies flat like a mirror that isn't in the mood to flatter. The ledger warms my shins with a softness that would have humiliated me last month and consoles me tonight. The apartment and I come to rest on the same breath. The next time the hum stops, the silence carries shape. A line of words press against my skin like braille. You're ready to be near. Fog over the bay tonight is dense enough to swallow entire blocks. Not the soft kind that hugs lampposts and perfumes the streets with nostalgia, but the kind that eats distance, that replaces perspective with pulse. It's the sort of fog that remembers ships and forgets names. Even sound gets lost in it. Horns dissolve mid-note. Footsteps stop belonging to feet. From my window, the diner's sign glows halo white, bleeding color into air that refuses to move. The letters blur into one word that doesn't exist in any alphabet, a slow unspelling of comfort. Beyond it, the world is just tone, a faint hum vibrating through fog like breath through fabric. At noon today, the old lighthouse flashed once. That's what people said. But that's not what it did. It's been dead for 20 years. Its bulb shattered. Its wiring cannibalized. Its keeper's house left to rot on the rocks. The harbor records confirm it hasn't sent a beam since the summer the bay claimed the last trawler. But at noon, something woke. Not light, awareness. The tower didn't flash. It stayed lit for exactly 47 seconds. I counted. I was washing a cup at the sink when it happened. The fog outside the window went translucent gold, and for that minute minus 13 seconds, the world rearranged itself into geometry again. Inside the haze, I saw them. 5 rectangles of light, hovering, aligned with the lighthouse itself like children bowing to a parent. The 5th, smallest one, pulsed faintly, as if an applause or warning. The clock on my phone ticked steady while my pulse learned to stutter in 3s. By the time the light blinked out, the air had taken on the taste of metal and thunder. The fog didn't disperse. It just inhaled the glow and held it. Everyone along the waterfront agreed it must have been a malfunction, a trick of the fog, a lens flare, an illusion. The local radio said the same thing twice, as if repetition could prove truth. But it wasn't a flash. It was an eye-opening. And eyes don't malfunction. By dusk, the fog thickened until the skyline vanished. The bay became rumor. Streetlights flickered, uncertain whether their light could travel that far. Even my building felt smaller inside it, edges dissolving as if air were learning subtraction. I waited until midnight. The hum started before I moved. Not from the vent this time, but from everywhere at once. The walls, the floorboards, the glass, even my teeth. A resonance that found home inside bone. The fog turned golden again, but softer this time. Patient, expectant. I didn't want to move. I did anyway, because staying felt like hiding from something that already knew my shape. At the edge of the bay, the chain-link fence was humming again, low, rhythmic, not random. The metal vibrated with a frequency you feel more than hear, a number that lives somewhere between heartbeat and electricity. It was the same pattern the thermos whispered earlier that morning. 4 pulses. Breath. 3. Breath. Then the whisper number. 47. It wasn't counting seconds. It was identifying itself. The diner behind me slept with its lights off for once. No one else was on the boardwalk. I placed both hands on the fence. The cold burned the salt from my palms. The pattern continued beneath my skin like an infection that had learned grace. The lighthouse, if that's still what it was, loomed somewhere inside the fog, its base invisible, its top a suggestion of intent. Then, without sound or ceremony, it lit again. The gold spread outward, swallowing fog instead of illuminating it. The air became syrup-thick and humming with static. I closed my eyes because eyes are liars. The light hit the fog and filled it until the world disappeared. No horizon, no depth, only a gold vastness that pressed against me like memory returning too fast. The salt in the air sharpened, metallic and sweet. My bones resonated. I could feel every joint naming itself in rhythm with a hum. Somewhere in that brightness, my heartbeat split in 2, the familiar one, and another, slower, larger, deliberate. Then, from deep inside that light, a voice. Not human, not mechanical. Something in between, a frequency pretending to be language. Answer when the ridge calls. The words hit like impact without sound, echoing through marrow, rewriting pulse. And then nothing. No fade, no diminuendo, no goodbye. Just instant absence. The fog dropped its gold and turned back to gray. The fence cooled. The hum dissolved into the sound of small waves licking pilings. I opened my eyes to find the bay exactly where it had been, and exactly wrong. The diner sign glowed again, halo white and unbothered. The air smelled of salt and burnt wiring. My mouth tasted of copper. But inside my chest, the slower heartbeat continued for several seconds before it surrendered to mine. The 2 beats overlapped briefly, imperfectly synchronized, like a duet trying to remember which part belongs to which singer. When it stopped, I realized I was crying, not from fear, but from a strange relief of being noticed. I walked home through fog, so thick it erased sound. My footsteps arrived seconds late. Every window I passed reflected gold for an instant, even the ones without lights behind them. The paper moon ledger was waiting on my kitchen table, open to a blank page that smelled faintly of brine. Across the bottom margin, condensation had drawn a line that curved upward, like the beginning of a wave. When I touched it, the paper warmed and faint handwriting appeared. The ridge remembers. The word ridge again. It felt geological, not metaphorical, like the land itself had kept an account. I pictured the cliffs beyond the bay, the jagged spine of stone that split the coast. The locals call it the sleeping ridge, because from the right distance it looks like a face turned to the sky. I thought of the voice saying, "Answer when the ridge calls," and wondered if that shape had been listening all along. When I closed the ledger, a hum, not mechanical, not my vent's familiar purr, rose from beneath the floorboards. It was the same frequency, the same number, 47 hertz of recognition. Later, in the small hours, the fog returned, but thinner now, more deliberate. The city slept under its blanket. I sat by the window, waiting for the next movement in this strange composition. At 4:07, or what used to be 4:07, the light outside shifted. The lighthouse didn't flash this time. It breathed. The beam widened, dimmed, widened again, as if testing new lungs. In its glow, the fog swirled into spirals that almost made sense. The rectangles appeared again, four large, one small, hovering above the water, their arrangement impossibly perfect. The fifth one pulsed faintly. Once, twice, 3 times. A pattern I recognized. Hold, release. I whispered, "I'm here." The chain link fence across the boardwalk sang back. The note so low it turned my vision to static. The thermos on the counter rattled and spilled a drop of water that glowed gold before evaporating. The light intensified until the fog became a solid thing, a wall of liquid brilliance. I closed my eyes, but the glow persisted behind my eyelids. Inside that brightness, a whisper again. The same voice, smaller now, closer. "Answer when the ridge calls." The voice wasn't asking anymore. It was confirming. I tried to speak, but my words came out as vibration, as hum. The sound wrapped the room, then the fog, then the bay, and then the world exhaled. The fog collapsed into rain that never reached the ground. The gold drained into the sea. The lighthouse darkened. Its eye closed once more. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was attentive, like a classroom after a question that everyone has understood, but no one dares to answer first. When I opened my eyes again, the fog had cleared, but my reflection was still standing in it. It faced the wrong direction, toward the lighthouse, away from me. Its outline shimmered faintly, gold against gray. Slowly, it lifted one hand, not in greeting, not in farewell. It was measuring something in the air, counting down. 7. The lips moved, silent but sure. 6. The hum in the vent rose to match. 5. I placed my palm against the glass. 4. My reflection did not follow. It continued counting. 3. The chain link fence began to sing again, faintly, across the water. 2. The paper moon ledger fluttered open on the table. 1. My reflection smiled, not at me, but at the space behind me. 0. The fog swallowed it. And I understood. Some eyes opened to look outward, and some let something in. I turned my bathroom into a dark room. The windows blacked out with tape, layers upon layers until the light forgot the seams. Towels rolled under the door. The mirror veiled with a trash bag pulled tight, so it made a new flat night inside the old one. The red bulb hanging from the shower rod like a patient heart, wired through an extension cord that shouldn't be trusted, and yet is. The ceiling fan unplugged, the vent taped, the usual hum denied a mouth. The paper moon ledger lies open on the sink, its spine drinking the cool porcelain. Pages glowing faintly as if printed from within. Ink that remembers the hand before the hand existed. The smell is chemical and clean and wrong for a bathroom, right for a laboratory. Fixer that isn't. Stop bath that wasn't. Hypo made of salt and static and time. I don't know why I started doing this. Only that I needed to see what the hum was hiding. Watching hadn't worked. Listening had worked too well. This is looking by other means. I brought photographs. Failed shots from my phone, glossy rectangles that should have shown the windows above the bay and showed only night. Screenshot of nothing. Printout to blackness. Video frames like coffins for light. Proof of absence stamped on paper with the self-importance printers lend to failure. Under the red light, they begin to change. At first, it's wishful thinking, the kind of pareidolia any nervous animal will summon to feel less alone. But then the shapes insist. Phosphorescent, delicate, pale as fish belly and stubborn as cut stone. They rise through the blacks like breath rising to a surface I can't see. 5 rectangles, always the same alignment, always a right angle with the small one inside. The edges fuzz as if dredged from memory, not from film. When I tilt my head, the whites thicken. When I blink, they thin. And through every adjustment, they remain obedient to a geometry that refuses to learn my name, but keeps speaking it anyway. In one photo, the small one contains me. Not me, not sharp, not flattering. A blur seated at my kitchen table, head turned towards something unseen. The posture is exact, familiar as an ache. I can feel the weight of the moment in my shoulders, even though this is a picture of a picture that never happened. The blur of my hair smears across the small rectangle, like a thumbprint after rain. In another, the small rectangle is empty but glowing. An open jaw, a held note. It looks like it's waiting with the confidence of something that knows the waiting is for me. Condensation slicks the tile. The red light turns moisture into small bruises. The ledger whispers against the porcelain sink, a soft page-on-page friction that isn't friction, more like 2 feathers deciding whether to lift. Pages flutter, though there's no breeze. On the wall, moisture forms words that vanish before I finish reading. I catch only fragments, like a priest late to procession. Balance, remain, listen. The letters beat out a nothing, and then rejoin it. It feels impolite to stare. The hum is not allowed in here. Tape vents, unplug fan. Rules written in blue painter's tape. But rules in this apartment are formal suggestions. It returns in other ways. The pipes behind the wall develop a tone, low and corrective. The towel bar adds a faint harmonic, like a coin on a bell. The room learns where to carry a note. I lay out the rest of the prints on the closed toilet lid, on the bathtub's porcelain rim, on the tile floor where my knees will remember it later. These are ordinary surfaces pretending to be trays, and the red light gives them permission. The photographs drink the night from one another and give back other little nights with geometry printed inside. A drop from the faucet taps the sink, like a metronome too polite to scold. Another follows. Another. I didn't turn the faucet on. I would swear this under oath. The rhythm adjusts until it matches something I recognize in my chest. For breath, 3, breath. I can feel the shape of the number that lives inside the rhythm and refuses to be counted. The droplets darken the white, but not with black, not with ink. A shimmering, colorless sheen spreads, molecular and superior. It doesn't look wet so much as intentional. The sheen becomes a plane that chooses reflectivity. It reflects a scene not in the room. The bay, seen from above, still and bright, with all 6 lights hovering now instead of 5. 6. The number I haven't wanted. The surface holds steady, as if it were the calm back of something vast. I bend close. The smell is seawater and warm metal. The image is precise until my breath touches it. Then the ripples unwrite the edges, and I have to start again. The chain link near the boardwalk is visible in miniature. The channel marker leans. The windows, 6, take their places like carved commandments. I am nowhere in the image, and everywhere beside it. The hum joins, surrounding me, low and steady, more felt than heard. The word surrounding is too tidy for this. It suffuses, it salts, it occupies. I realize it's not sound anymore. It's place, a field, a pressure that, if it had hands, would be careful with my collarbones. The prints keep changing. One record the bay from the night it refused to be photographed. Under the red bulb of black opens like a pupil and shows a narrow stair of salt rising along my kitchen wall. The same stair, only here it climbs differently. Bending toward a corner of my apartment does not have, and never will if architecture is allowed to vote. Another print shows the diner empty. Chairs up, a gleam on the grill like a memory of heat. On its back someone, me later, me before, has written "Do not pay" in silence in a hand that is mine when I'm afraid of being misread. The ledger's glow brightens the way a thought does when it knows it has been understood. It doesn't insist. It offers. I rest my hand on the page, and it warms my palm as if my pulse were a small appliance to be kept operational. The marginal geometry, the 4 and the 1, thickens, then thins, then continues its slow, patient work of making the page into a room. The moisture on the wall writes again. I angle my head. The words slide away. I catch remain a second time, and below it between, the letters fatter with a condensation decided to rest. If I blink wrong, the lines become maps. If I blink right, the maps become sentences. I don't blink. The sentences make themselves private. Then the drip, drop by drop, the water turns a bright basin into a shallow bay. The sheen deepens. The reflected scene steadies. It is night in the sink and noon on my face and something older at the edges. The 6 lights hover with the patience of long practice. I watch for the 5th to pulse, and instead the smallest, a 6th nested like a seed in the 5th, quivers once, as if it heard a distant shore remember its name. The faucet stops on its own. The last drop bites the surface, and the room vibrates very slightly. The way a room does when a train a mile away confesses it is a train. The water in the sink ripples once, twice, then settles into a perfect mirror. In its surface, I see not my face but words, written backward, letters made of light, as if a sign somewhere under the water has turned to show me its soft side. I read aloud before fear can close my teeth around the instinct. Open the lattice. The room sighs as if it's been waiting centuries for someone to say that aloud. The sigh moves the photographs. Edges lift, settle, lift again, a slow chorus of paper exhalation. The towels under the door slump a half-inch, as if bowing. The red bulb dims and swells, dim and swell, like a heartbeat remembering a slower world. Open the lattice, I say again, because repetition makes truth into architecture. The word lattice lives in my mouth like something edible. I expect woodwork. I get geometry. The mirror on the wall strains under its plastic veil. The bag tightens, loosens, tightens. I reach for the tape as if I've been asked to unveil the face of a sleeping god and know better than to expect apologies from it. The faucet ticks once more. The prints on the bathtub rim change, as though someone turned a page beneath them I cannot see. In one, the small rectangle finally contains an open door. It isn't a door. It's its idea. And the idea is unhappy with hinges. From the vent, I tape comes nothing. From behind the wall, I insulted into silence comes the soft percussion of building bones. 4-hold, 3-hold. The pipes click in sympathy, like knitting needles under a grandmother's certainty. The chain link far away performs the same pattern inside my teeth. I pull the tape from the mirror's edges. It peels like a bandage under water. The black bag slips, and the mirror shines up a dark too slick for the red bulb. In it, the bathroom does not reflect. It recites. The images on the prints are brighter in the glass than on their paper, and when I angle my head, the lines and rectangles align their corners with the mirror's frame. The sink-quarters lattice overlays my face, and in the intersection of squares my eyes become 5, and then, for a fraction of a held breath, 6. The ledger flips a page with a ruffle that sounds like quiet applause. On the new page, without ink, rays and fiber, a phrase blossoms that I read by fingertip. Answer when the ridge calls. I heard you. I tell the page, which is also the room, which is also the bay. The red bulb trembles, the filament and eyelash refusing to be wished upon. It steadies. I lower my face over the sink. The 6 lights draw nearer until they ought to bump my nose. Instead, they pass through. They settle in an arrangement that makes my dim brain wish for compass and straight edge. Open the lattice, I say, and the words skid off the surface of the water and don't return. Perhaps they are doing their work elsewhere now. The sound I have always called hum chooses a pitch that is no letter. It broadens and thins until it becomes sheer pressure, the way a storm makes a room aware of its walls. My palms sweat, the mark that the fence left on them, 4 dots and a smaller one, wakes and warms and answers back in Morse my skin translates as permission. The room changes scale. Not size scale. The tiles become too big for their grout. The grout too fine for its job. My shoulders fit the doorway in a way that implies I did not take my height seriously before now. The light is too close to my eyes and also infinitely far. The red bulb makes the air syrup, and the mirrored water makes it glass. And between syrup and glass, I remember between is where I'm supposed to breathe. Hold the note when you wake. The air reminds me, late but still in time. I inhale. 4. Hold. Exhale. 3. Hold. The sink water gives a held breath back to me at the rate of the tide, under a dock that knows your weight. The red expands. The ledger warms my shins. The towel under the door lets a hair of hallway air in, as if to taste the room for courage. Open the lattice. I say once more. This time it is not language. It is alignment. The syllables join where lines meet. The mirror, the sink, the prints, the page, my pulse, everything I have, everything that has me, finds the corner of the right angle that has been practicing in this house since before I learned to boil water without supervision. The room answers with a single, delighted intake of breath. For a second, I see the lattice, not wood, not wire, not even grid. It is made of intervals, of the spaces between every counted thing. It is beautiful in a way I do not trust, because beauty is the oldest way to smuggle instructions. The ledger hisses like a seashell pressed to an ear, which is to say it plays the distant ocean we insist is inside the shell and is not. On the page, new raised text appears beneath my fingers, small and obedient. Near, it repeats down the margin in a vertical column. That becomes a ladder, that becomes a staircase. I do not have a nerve to build out a salt again. The photographs on the tub begin to overexpose in real time. The blacks go to gray. The grays go to silver. The silvers become a white that remembers how to hold an outline. The small inner rectangle in every frame opens like a pupil to daylight. In each, a different room I have lived in receives a door it never deserved. The sink water brightens. The lattice sharpens. The mirror forgets itself and becomes window. The apartment leans a measured fraction toward the bathroom like a listener into a keyhole, embarrassed by its own appetite. I hear it then, a second note, miles deep, from under the floor, the building's answer to the room's attempt. It is the missing minute entering the bathroom as an adult. It is 4:07 walking in without apology, and sitting down on the closed toilet, live with the dignity of a judge. I cannot tell whether it has brought mercy or arithmetic. I suspect both. Open, I say to the note, which is also a door. Near, I say to the lattice, which is also a law. The red bulb flickers twice. It steadies. It strains. Something has to concede. I am not foolish enough to hope it will be time. I close my eyes because looking would be greedy. The hum presses a palm against my sternum and spreads its fingers, so I'll know where to put mine. The sink offers a new breath, and I take it. The ledger's page cools under my hand, as if a signature has already been written, and the ink needs to dry. The photographs whisper as their corners lift. Behind the taping on the window, fog remembers being gold. The towel under the door inhales of the room, and I forgive it for the mildew it will taste like tomorrow, because I have needed less useful things more. Open the lattice. The sink writes backward again. Not for me, for the mirror. I'm ready, I say, to no one, to everyone, to the ridge pretending to be stone, to the bay pretending to be weather, to the page pretending to be paper, to the minutes pretending to be innocent. The room holds still the way a stage does half a second before the curtain rises. The wall behind the sink is breathing again. Every exhale pushes the paint outward. Every inhale pulls it back. The sound is low, almost polite, like waves refusing to wake the shore. I stand barefoot on the tiles, listening, holding my own breath to make space for it. Then I see the first line. A thin thread of light crawls up the wall, stopping just beneath the ceiling. Another joins it, crossing at a right angle. Together they form a glowing frame. Then another appears inside it, smaller. For lights, one nested. The geometry that's been haunting my nights finally makes itself visible, here, carved in phosphorescence and silence. The vent hums approval. From the sink, the dark water brightens to a muted gold. The reflection now shows the lattice fully assembled, though the room itself remains half built by light. I reach out, and the surface ripples under my touch. Not liquid, but something that pretends to be soft. Behind it, or within it, another room waits. My phone vibrates. One new message, and signed. Don't step in. Let your mind go where your body can't. I close my eyes and breathe the rhythm the hum taught me. 4, pause, 3 pause. When I open them again, I'm still standing in my bathroom, but the reflection has changed. The room in the mirror is brighter, filled with people, dozens, each standing where I once stood, facing walls that breathe, tracing light that answers back. Their mouths move in silent unison. I can't hear them, but I can feel the word they're saying. Near, then the lights in my bathroom align, each thread locking into place until the frame becomes solid, precise, deliberate. The lattice opens. It's not a doorway. It's a decision. The sound begins in the pipes. A low groan that deepens until it becomes vibration. Then the entire building joins in. The diner below hums through its ceiling fans. The stairs throb under my feet. Every metal vent and faucet across the block resonates in sympathy. It's as though the ridge itself has cleared its throat. The lattice on my wall shivers. Gold dust, salt, and light mix together. Falls in faint streams, covering the tiles like snow that refuses to melt. When I touch it, it's warm. The hum organizes itself into pattern. 4 long pulses, 3 short breaths. A code I know too well. The phone rings, but the screen only shows static. When I answer, there's no voice, just breathing that matches mine half a beat behind. Then the line breaks with a deep tone that feels like it's coming from below the building. The ridge is singing. I press my ear to the wall. It vibrates with hundreds of tiny resonances, voices overlapping, indistinct, saying words that might be names, not prayers, records. The paper moon ledger on my counter opens by itself, pages fluttering until they stop at mine. My name glows faintly. The number 19 pulses once. Beneath it, new lines etch themselves in glowing script. Lives balanced. For debts remaining, 15. It's a count of me in real time. Then the wall behind the lattice trembles and expands. The light pattern ripples like a throat clearing. The hum turns to breath. Then speech. Not words, locations. Coordinates made of tone and rhythm, mapping where every hum across the town is coming from. Each one a voice. Each one a witness. I whisper, I hear you. The hum pauses, then replies with my own voice, soft and exact. Then answer. The crack widens. Light spills out, not gold this time, but colorless, like the world has forgotten what hue to wear. The walls lean, subtly at first, then more obviously. The room is turning without moving, pivoting along some unseen axis. My balance fails. I grip the sink. The mirror shows the ceiling where the floor should be, and through the window behind me I glimpse the bay tilted sideways, its horizon running vertical like a line on a page. The hum keeps perfect rhythm. I realize it's not the room turning. It's time. The hour itself folding around me, long and slow, like a page being flipped without tearing. My watch skips backward, then forward, then freezes on 4:07, the missing minute. I feel it rushing like water filling a lung. Every sound thickens. Every movement elongates. The air smells of rain before it falls. The lattice expands, spreading along the wall like a blossom of light. In its glow, shadows walk against their owners. Mine kneels while I stand. The phone buzzes once, just enough to show a single new message. This is the long turn. Don't resist the hinge. The hum lowers to a note I feel in my bones. A sound too deep for ears, too close for distance. Everything slows until the hum itself becomes a shape, a door folding itself inward, an hour choosing its own path. Then silence. The air stills. The mirror returns to normal. My reflection realigns, and the lattice dims to a faint outline. Only the tile crack remains, still glowing, still shaped like a 7. At first, I think I dreamed it. Then I see the time. It's 5:07, but the sun hasn't moved. 1 hour gone, still night. Outside, the windows above the bay are gone too. Only their reflections ripple faintly on the water, as if they dive beneath the surface. The phone rings once and stops. Then a text arrives. Don't worry. We borrowed it. The ridge hums its agreement, a low, steady throb that rises from the foundations and settles in the chest like a second pulse. I check the ledger again. My name now glows brighter, the number beside it changing. Hour owed, 1. Hour borrowed, 1. Status, balanced. balanced, whatever that means. The apartment smells faintly of salt again. A fine mist clings to the windows, and when I wipe it away, words appear where my hand passes. Answer, not with words, with the missing note. I close my eyes and hum, soft, unsure. The vent joins. The wall joins. The building joins. 47 harmonics, each one distinct, overlapping. The entire ridge is singing back. Something changes in the air, pressure, warmth, gravity itself. I feel lifted, weightless, as though standing at the bottom of an ocean that has just remembered it can breathe. Then through the lattice, a dim glow forms, a shape built from lines of light and geometry, the ledger, now alive, filling the wall. Its title burns white gold, the ledger of bright things. 47 names, 47 breaths. Each one glows on the wall, alive in motionless light. Some burn bright, others flicker faint, unresolved. Mine sits near the center, pulsing gently between two states. Open, then dim, as if unsure which side of balance I belong to. The hum stabilizes into a vast harmonic tone, 47 distinct voices woven into one. The ridge is keeping count. I can feel them all. Neighbors, strangers, the man who fixes a diner's grill, the child who feeds gulls at the pier. Everyone within this geometry is connected by pulse, by breath, by the missing note. The ledger scrolls downward, names writing themselves in real time, each followed by numbers, moments, debts, mercies. A living account of a town that never asked to be measured. Then, beneath the list, new words form in radiant script. All lights aligned, awaiting answer. The vent's hum falters, shifting into silence so complete I can hear my own heartbeat. The walls tremble. The salt on the floor begins to glow faintly gold. I understand, suddenly, that the lights above the bay were never ships. They were reflections, mirrors of what the ridge itself remembers. The missing note is what we are. The wall brightens until the whole apartment becomes a page, and for an instant, every sound I've ever made, the hum, the breath, the word near, repeats in perfect symmetry. Then quiet, only the faint warmth of stone beneath my feet, the echo of a heartbeat in the walls. And the final message on my phone, glowing through the dark. All 47 are listening. Open the lattice. The wall turns to glass. Beyond it, the bay is frozen, not in time, but in memory. Water suspended mid-motion. Gulls caught with wings half-folded. Light scattered in static reflection. It feels less like looking through and more like being looked back at. I step closer. The air on my side of the wall is heavy with warmth. On the other, pale gold mist coils, alive with faint rhythmic pulses. 47 of them, breathing in synchrony. The paper moon ledger lies open on the floor, its pages fluttering though there's no wind. Each page flashes briefly, showing moments from lives I've never lived. A child laughing under streetlight. A man fixing a broken radio. A woman turning to wave at someone she's already lost. All these scenes dissolve into the same shape. Light folding into rectangles, the same lattice pattern repeated endlessly. Then I hear it, a deep, resonant tone rising from the bay. Not quite music, not quite thunder. It's the answer waiting to be sung. The phone buzzes once. Your hour is almost full. If you open it now, you won't come back empty. The glass wall hums at the same frequency as my heartbeat. The vent joins. The entire building trembles softly, as if bracing itself for something immense and gentle. I whisper, I'm ready. The wall breathes in. Water surrounds everything. Not crushing, not cold, just present. I open my eyes and see the bay from beneath, luminous and silent. Above, 6 rectangles hover like lanterns, their light refracted to the shifting mirror of the surface. Below, the town glows faintly. Buildings, roads, even the diner outlined in soft bioluminescence, as though memory itself has gone translucent. When I try to breathe, I can. The water moves through me like air that forgot to be heavy. The hum continues, clearer than ever. Each tone feels like a direction, each vibration a path through the submerged geometry. I follow without walking, drawn toward the deepest pulse. Around me, shadows drift. People, maybe, each glowing faintly, each holding a blue thermos that emits soft light. Their faces are calm, peaceful. Some look upward toward the surface. Others stare downward into infinity. I understand. These are the ones who answer before me. The 47. Ahead, a golden spiral descends into the dark. The lattice pattern hovers around it like scaffolding built from pure resonance. I reach toward it. The thermos I once held appears in my hand, glowing again. The lid opens on its own, releasing a thread of light that joins the spiral below. Your note is ready. Hold it steady. The voice is no longer external. It lives in my bones now. I inhale, exhale, and the water hums with me. The spiral brightens. Then the ridge sings. The ridge doesn't make sound anymore. It is sound. 47 tones interlock, weaving through one another like strands of light. I can see them, ribbons of vibration curling through the water. Each one corresponds to a life, a breath taken, a kindness made, a mistake forgiven. They intersect and merge, forming the ledger's living geometry. Mine joins last. The thermos in my hand dissolves into light, merging with the spiral. My voice follows, not words, not even tone, just breath turned into frequency. The spiral begins to close, winding tighter until it becomes a single note, so pure it is shape. The water around me clears to absolute stillness. In that stillness, I see the bay as it truly is. Not a body of water, but a membrane stretched between what was and what could be. The ridge above vibrates once, enormous and slow, like a giant heart completing its final beat. The pulse spreads outward, reaching every vent, every pipe, every wire in the town. Lights flicker on, perfectly synchronized, then dim to black. The hum fades. But in the silence that follows, I hear something else. Music, faint and fragile, sung not by the ridge but by the town itself. 47 voices breathing together, completing the missing note. Balance achieved. The lattice dissolves. The light folds inward. I feel myself pulled back toward the surface, the water thinning until air remembers me again. It's morning. The sky above the bay is pale and ordinary. The diner is open, frying oil and coffee smells mixing with the salt breeze. The world seems to have remembered its rules. But there's a quiet difference, something in the rhythm of footsteps, the pause before words. The town breathes in time now. At the counter, Walter hums softly as he stirs his coffee. Ruth wipes the table, murmuring a tune that no one taught her. Outside, a boy whistles a sequence of 7 notes that somehow feels inevitable. The lights are gone from the sky, but their pattern remains, reflected in puddles, in glass, in the shine of the diner's chrome fixtures. A geometry so faint most wouldn't see it. But I do. When I glance at my phone, there's one new notification in the Paper Moon Ledger app. 47/47 balanced. Hour returned. Status complete. Below it, one more line appears in gray. Remaining 0. I close the app and hear faint laughter like static in sunlight. The blue thermos still sits on my counter. When I lift it, it's weightless. The inside is dry, the glow gone. But when I tip it toward my ear, I still hear the echo of the ridge, soft, distant, patient. Near, it says, and for once it sounds like goodbye. Weeks have passed. The bay has forgotten to shimmer, but I haven't. I walk its edge at dusk, feeling the hum beneath my feet. It's faint, but they're steady, alive, eternal. Sometimes I think I see the fifth light hovering in the fog. Sometimes I dream I never came back. But in every version of the dream, the same thing happens. I wake with a taste of salt on my lips and a song fading from memory. The ridge no longer groans at night. The vents no longer sing. Yet, when the wind moves through town, it carries a faint echo, a harmonic whisper that seems to say, keep the balance. At the diner, they've hung a new sign above the window, the Bright Things Cafe. No one remembers who suggested the name. No one questions why it feels right. On the far wall, someone painted a mural, a golden pattern of rectangles, 4 and 1 smaller inside. Underneath, in small handwritten letters, for those who answered, When I stand there alone, the paint sometimes glows faintly just for a heartbeat, enough to remind me it's still watching, still counting. The paper moon ledger remains empty now. No new entries. No debts. Just a single line at the very bottom of the last page. Mara Ellison, balanced. I close it and whisper, "Thank you." The ledger warms in my hands before going still. Outside, the horizon fades to silver. The bay blinks once, its surface rippling outward in a silent, perfect pulse. The hum returns just once, like a heartbeat beneath the earth. Then quiet, then peace. And somewhere, beneath the ridge, the light answers with a final whisper meant only for those who still listen. Near,